3 candidates this evening. They will have about 20 to 25 minutes of a presentation that they will give to this committee. Then we'll follow up with a series of, 6, 7 questions. Right, we have 7 questions. And we'll just kind of have to play that one. They might be addressing some of those questions, during their presentations, and we'll be able to make a notation of that. At the end of their, the questions, we'll ask if they have any questions and then any closing remarks. So there's a few 5 minutes, I believe, in between each of the candidates as they come in for their interview. So before they start their presentation, I would like this committee to at least go around just to introduce themselves, and then they can introduce themselves so that they know who we are. I had asked Christina to put together just kind of a worksheet for us that we can use this evening. For each, there's 3 sheets, 1 for each candidate, where you can write the OPM at the top. And I was hoping that I would have 7 volunteers that would be interested in asking a question. So, all right, who wants to do number 1?
Right, I'll do it.
All right, Pete Conroy. Number 1. 2.
I can do 2.
All right, well. Bill.
I'll do 3.
All right, so Larry. All right, Larry, 4.
5.
Got that? 6.
I guess I can do 6.
All right, Mike. And for 7. I can do 7. All right. Thank you.
Are we formally asking all the questions, even if they cover the information in their presentation?
Well, I mean, if it's your question and you know that they covered it, you might have maybe a question to,
All right.
pull out of that.
That's fine.
Oh, thank you very much. So for this evening, we'll go through the interviews, then we'll have a discussion as a group, regarding the interviews, and I would like this, committee to at least, maybe possibly vote on a recommendation that we can send forward to the select board, so that we can put that on the select board agenda for Monday evening, if possible, so that we can, try to lock down, and obviously it will be contingent upon reference checks and so forth. Then we'll do the minutes, we'll schedule the next meeting, and then we'll adjourn. But it is going to be, we have a lot of time for a long evening, but hopefully, we can move things right along. It won't be a 20-minute meeting if we have them. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they would like to add before we get started? Our first candidate is scheduled to come in at 6:45.
We're outside. There's no time on the agenda to do any time, I think.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, that they're here, so we could bring them
Oh, looking forward to it. Thank you.
in. All right, Christina, sure. So I will, for each of the groups that come in, I'll just kind of run through what it's going to look like for them for their time that they're here.
Is one group going to be virtual?
I think it's for a presentation.
Oh, I'll get it. Yep, everyone's in person then.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We've left some room over here at the...
Yeah, if you guys want to go there and I'll DJ.
Each or yeah.
Yep. They don't put those on computers anymore.
Right.
I brought my own connection too, just in case.
Taylor, I'm just gonna say a few words and before you. Okay, I would like to be there right now. So I got a club.
Oh, that's Augusta. I think we would all want to be there. It's number 13.
All right, well, I'd like to, say, thank you for, making the time to be able to meet with us this evening. As you know, we will be interviewing 3, candidates this evening. And we've scheduled roughly 45 minutes for each of you to, interact with us, during the session. And so there'll be a 20-minute opportunity, 25 minutes for you to go through your presentation with us. And we have a series of 7 questions that we'll be asking you. I'm hoping that there'll be some time for you at the end to ask us questions and any closing remarks that you might have.
Sure.
So, we'd just like to relax and
That's how we run things.
but before that, I think it would be beneficial for you if we went around the room here and introduced ourselves and, who we are as representation on this committee.
Yep, that'd be great.
If you wouldn't mind.
I'm Michael McCullough, I'm a member at large.
Matthew Simon, member at large.
Mike O'Brien, Fire Chief.
Kate Jane, member at large.
Peter Conroy, member at large.
Marie Sky, town administrator.
Lorraine Carboni, chair of this committee, but also the representative of the select board.
Nathan Dowling, building commissioner.
Larry Costan, finance committee.
Great. And I am Taylor McDonald from Palmer Associates. To my right,
Bob Rice, owner's project manager.
And Alex Murphy, Palmer Associates.
so we'll get into introductions, and we put some things together for you to kind of show you how we like to work and some ideas that we have on the project. So first of all, my partner Rick Pomeroy couldn't be here today. He had a prior engagement that he had scheduled months ago. We had asked if we could maybe move it. We said, you know what, I'll just run the show. Usually me and him kind of tag team this. We have had to split up a couple times, but that's why you're getting the both of us when you get this project. So if I can't be there or he can't, one of us can. And that's the way we run all of our projects. So first and foremost, you're getting the owners of the company if you select Palmer Associates. So we don't hire people for their portfolio of projects. Every single project that you see today has been done by Rick or myself or both. That's just how we run things. Every single project we have our fingers in. We're not going anywhere. Rick will probably retire in 10 years. I'm taking over. That's the plan, and it's already mapped out. So just want everybody to know that we are a smaller company. We see no vision of being a large company. We have 10 employees. We take on only what we can take on. We look at quality over quantity. I think one of the firms you're interviewing tonight has tried to buy us twice, and we've turned them down because we keep taking work from them. So it's interesting. We're one of the last small companies around, and we take pride in that. And I think we do a great job. We finished up a couple years ago your police station, which was a great success. So we love that project. We love working in the town, and we're hoping we can do it again. So again, the Pomeroy team that you will see is the 3 of us throughout the project and my partner, Rick Pomeroy. So that's the way we run all of our projects. You'll see me at all of the daily, all of the weekly or bi-weekly meetings that we may have on site. Any of the work leading up to that during design will probably be myself and Rick. When we get into the construction, you'll see a lot more of Bob. Alex's role in this is an assistant project manager, so she'll be really helping Rick and I throughout the coordination of the design documents with the architect, any of that pre-construction work, and then construction and any closeout work as well. So Alex is a new hire to us. She's been working on a multitude of projects for us. This is not her first stint in construction, but she's been with us for about 8 months now. I've known her before that for about 2 years. And so she's coming from a facilities background, that she did facilities work at Northeastern, Bridgewater State, and Florida State. So she has a very well-packed background as well. And Bob was the clerk for the police station project. He has over 30 years of experience in the field. He's currently working on the Stoughton Fire Station headquarters that we're doing right now. There's actually 2 fire stations that we're doing for Stoughton. One is an operational station, and then we'll be doing a renovation expansion of their historic Freeman Street building station in the center of Stoughton. So we have those 2 fire station projects going on, as well as 4 fire station projects in Plymouth right now. Public safety is what we do. It's 95% of the work that we do. We know it in and out. I guarantee you we know it better than any other OPM. There's not been a day that's gone by since this company has been started that we have not been doing public safety projects. We're always working on them. So I just talked about this. This rundown of 20 plus projects, public safety only projects, has been completed in the last 13 years by us. So that doesn't account for this. We're actually turning 20 this year. We're having a party, a big celebration in September. So that doesn't account for the first 7 years that we did other public safety projects. It gives us, I think, a competitive advantage in the vendors that we work with. It seems to be a lot of the same vendors that we're doing work with. We understand the way that public safety individuals talk. We understand response times. We understand communications. We were a big part of the whole communications upgrade that took place at the police station. There was many meetings spent on that process and upgrades to the radio system over there that I was a part of, and I helped usher through with the chief. Huge success. We turned over $200,000 back to the town when we did the police station. Of that, I think around, I'll say we had radio upgrades. We had radio microwave upgrades that were $213,000. We had a phase 2 radio upgrades that were $132,000, and miscellaneous other radio microwave upgrades that we did over there. So that would have been in our contingency. The town decided to make a very well respected move at that time and upgrade the radio system through that project. So it's just something that we're part of no matter what, the communications and the radio aspects of our projects. I'm trying not to talk the entire time.
You're doing a great job.
Normally Rick's right next to me and he can bounce things off. So let me just kind of get into your project, and then I promise Rick and Alex will talk as well. But a lot of people ask, what does a project manager do? So we just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of really those 3 phases of the project. The first being, the critical items, hiring of the design team. I did take a look at the feasibility study that was done. I thought that was a great job. Used a great estimator too, PM&C we work with all the time. To hire a design team that is locked in on public safety, we would hope would be kind of the direction the town would want to go, especially fire stations. That's how we, had such an advantage, I think, at the police station there. We worked with a designer that, does police stations. So we'd like to look at that RFP and help you craft that in a way that you're getting the best bang for your buck when you put that out on the street. And then site analysis. You're looking at a couple different sites off of Bedford Street and behind the COA. If there's any other sites that you need to look at, there's geotechnical analysis that needs to be done. There's work with natural heritage that needs to be done that we were a part of at, again, the police station. I took the training for the turtle courses. I've done it all. We had the turtle fence up the entire time. So, that's all part of, you laugh, it's turtle training, believe it or not. So we've been through that. We know the players. we look forward to taking on those challenges again. And I think you have some pretty cool sites, some pretty cool options here, and looking at those sites. So we'd bring the designer on and start looking at those sites more closely. Obviously, establishing the budget and the schedule, there was an estimate in there, I think for the police, the fire station, around 16 million, but it didn't include a lot of soft costs. I think the soft costs still have to be drilled down pretty well. So we would like to go through that, make sure that we have a real working budget as we go through this. Obviously, that's what a feasibility study is to figure out. So that's part and parcel to the process. Owner vendor item planning, that's what I talked about in terms of radios or furniture, really your soft costs, phones, things that we would need to make sure they're accounted for in the budget, so that we can make sure they're being carried. For a fire station, you want to make sure you're carrying firematic operations equipment like your gear dryer, washer, extractor, hose rails, that sort of thing, that if you're not keen to fire station design, they're going to be missed. So we carry those right up front. We go through and do a whole equipment list. It's proven from years of working in fire stations. There's even things that, fire chiefs look at and say, oh, we forgot that we needed to include this. So we have avenues that work. Next would be estimating, working with an estimator that probably your designer will carry, but then we would also recommend a third-party estimate. It's usually good to do two, especially in this climate of estimating. Marketing, again, we were critical, I believe, to the passing of the police station. I don't think there was one no vote when the town finally voted on that project in that auditorium. It was a major success. We went to town meeting, gave presentations. We were part of the committee that kind of helped usher that along. We do it all the time. We're not scared to be in front of the spotlight or answer questions. We hold forums. We do touch-a-trucks at the fire stations and have people come down and see what conditions they're actually working out of, tours, that sort of thing. It's all part of what we do. We don't charge extra for that. We want to see the project succeed and move forward just as much as the town does. Quality control review. Again, what we do is we take and redline a set of documents before they go out on the street. Usually our comments are in the 300 to 400 range of comments that go back to the architects, and make sure that they're things that are coordinated. It could be things that are in process, it could be things that we just picked up on, but we go through and make sure that when you're looking at the drawings that certain details go back to the right drawings. There isn't missing sheets. Sometimes it's small stuff, but we do a full quality control review. It takes us about 2 weeks long. I go through it, Rick goes through it, as well as the site super, or the site project manager who's going to be doing it. So you get 3 different eyes looking at it that get comments back to the town and the designer. Contractor pre-qualification. Being that this project probably will be over 10 million, I'm going to stop talking and take a drink of water, and I'll let Alex talk a little about pre-qualification because she's been through it and doing it now.
Yeah, in the last 8 months I've gone through, now will be 3 pre-qualifications, 2 for fire stations. So for any project over $10 million, general contractors and subcontractors have to be pre-qualified. What does that mean? That means they have to meet a certain set of standards, which is set by the state. So as part of the OPM, we, with the design team and members of the committee, review those packages to make sure that contractors are qualified to do these projects. And it's a pretty tedious process, but something that we've been through, and it's a part of Massachusetts state statute, so you have to do it. But it's something that we've been through many times. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
And lastly, bidding. I don't have to get into that. Everybody knows the bidding process. I'm MC PPO certified. Alex is in the process. Rick is certified. We do it all the time. The towns do it all the time too. But we can be as helpful in that process, or hands off in that process as the town wants. So we usually like to lead the charge if the town lets us. But sometimes there's a procurement officer in town who says, "Nope, I'm doing it all," and that's fine. But we can help in any way that you'd like. What's going on? There we go. So through construction, I'll try not to get into the weeds and too much of this, but our job in construction, really through the whole project, is to keep the monkey off of the owner's back, to make sure that the project is being completed in a way that it is paid for by the owner. So the schedule, everybody's got a schedule to meet. We do weekly schedule updates with the contractor. We're always looking at that schedule in terms of, do we have to have the contractor perform a makeup schedule because things are falling behind. The key to keeping the schedule on track is just constant monitoring of it, but communication with the contractor, with the architect. And it's not rocket science. It's, we can tell when something's slipping or ahead of schedule. Obviously the contractor wants to get in there, make his money and move on. But the thing with that is we don't want to make sure things are overlooked because he's moving too quickly. So you look at that schedule and you make sure it's realistic at the beginning of the project. We set realistic expectations for the schedule in the specifications when it goes out, and then review that with the contractor and we get it back. So it's something that's reviewed at every project meeting. We're always doing, keeping an eye on it. Go ahead, Bob.
What we normally do, first meeting with the general contractor, we request an overall construction schedule from the beginning to the end. And in that schedule, we basically highlight milestones within the project as far as foundation, steel, trusses, siding, roof, and we make sure that in those critical paths that they meet those critical paths. If there isn't, then we need to basically ask why. Why aren't we meeting the schedule? We also require a 2-week look ahead, meaning that what's going to be happening 2 weeks on the site. That way it gives me an idea as far as what's going to be happening on the site. I can also check the specifications and the drawings and make sure what's being constructed is what's on the drawings and specifications. And it also lets me know if I need to hire, I should bring in a third-party inspector to inspect the footing for soil compaction or some tests for the concrete. So we try to keep them in line to make the project run smoothly and on schedule.
Thank you. Next, budget management. That's the cornerstone of what we do. The company was founded by Rick in 2003. And at that time, he actually was working on a company that was publicly traded on Wall Street. And he started the company because he had seen these projects in these towns keep going back to the well for more money, for more money, more money. And it was right around the time that the state enacted the actual law that you needed a project manager for anything over 1.5 million. So when he started the company, he said, my whole game plan here is to not keep going back to the well. We're going to get these budgets, we're going to make sure they're right, we're going to stick to them, and that's going to be the budget. We haven't had one project go over budget. We've always turned money back to the town, and that's the honest truth. It's something we're very proud of. We set realistic budgets, we stick to them, and we finish the project strong. So it is the cornerstone of everything we do. If once this money is approved at town meeting, that's the budget. We set the budget, we live within it. I feel like I'm going so fast, I'm sorry. We feel we manage a little bit differently. We promote, what we call a collaborative rather than adversarial relationship. My personal feelings on why there's so many horror stories with the construction projects is egos get in the way, and people don't like to work together and play nicely in the sandbox, as we like to say. We're like therapists sometimes, I think. We take a lot of that brunt of that force for, from the architect or from the GC, and we help, I think, kind of smooth that over. We promote, I call it team building, team collaboration. There's different, words for it, but we try to make it we try to make sure that everybody understands what the goals are for the project and what's expected from them. And I think as soon as you lay out what is required of them and what the expectations are, then people usually come around. And we're very proud of the fact that architects and general contractors actually follow the projects that we're doing. They like to bid our projects. We have GCs that call and ask if we have anything coming up. They like to work with us. And we found that they bid our projects more aggressively. Because if they're working with a project manager that is gonna slam their fist on the table and scream at them to get things done, and it's just gonna be a horror show, they're gonna put more money in the contingency, in their contingency.
If I can add to that.
Yeah.
It's no secret, architects and contractors don't get along sometimes. I've had dealings with projects where we've had differences between the two. What we try to do is bring our parties together and resolve before anything gets escalated. That way, everything is on the table and we work through it to get through the project. So we have to wear many hats. I've been a mediator for so long, the past 8 years, so I understand the difficulties as far as the construction portion, as far as getting the job done, scheduling. But again, it's something that I enjoy doing. So.
Thank you, Bob. I'll try to go through these, a few of these a little more quick. So next is design team oversight, and really what that means is, we are still, we're hired by the town, and when that architect comes on board, that architect is under us. We're making sure the architect keeps their schedule, they're doing what they need to do, they're doing quality control reviews, they're having, meetings with their consultants regularly, typical oversight that you would have on anybody on a job, but we're making sure that, the architect is sticking to their contract requirements. And next is town and client management. And what I mean by that is there's going to be points in the project where the town needs to make decisions. And we try to line those up right when we get on board, that there's certain milestones. There might be a finishes meeting that we need to have so you can pick colors. There might be a meeting to pick furniture. And we'll try to line that up in your schedule so we have answers in time to give them to the consultants and to the vendors so that they can do their work in time. So it's not like you're going to be hands off and not have to do anything. We're going to make you do a little work. We'll manage it all, but there will be times that you have to come and meet, and we'll make sure that we're moving in the right direction. So we call that client management. GC management and oversight. I don't think we have to get into that. It's something we're doing daily. Really on every project during construction. So, we're making sure that, the products on site that are landing there, conform to the submittals. We're making sure it's being built correctly. We're managing, material testing that's being done. Go ahead, Bob, take this away.
No, I do a daily report as far as the workers on site, taking pictures, just writing a report as far as what's going on during the construction during the day. But if I could jump another direction, before that even comes about, for the first time we meet the general contractor, we want to make sure that all the material that he's going to order, all the equipment is not in back order. We've learned since COVID that we had trouble in some of the projects where we didn't get the generator in time, we didn't get the transformer in time. So that's a critical step that we need to address to the client and also represent the owner, that all the material is pre-ordered. That way there's no delay in the project. So it's just another thing that we try to do.
Yeah. Daily progress monitoring. Anytime there's construction being done, someone's on site. That'll be Bob in this case, as we're hopeful. So anything's being done, we're there, and making sure that it's being done correctly. We coordinate the inspections, and we coordinate the installs with utility companies. So everybody knows how much fun that can be sometimes, but we do all that dirty work, so to speak, for the town during the project. Next, change order management. So firstly, with change orders, I think, again, expectations. You don't want to see them, but they're going to come up in every single construction project. The way that I like to put it is, even if somebody's designed a fire station, that next fire station that they designed is a prototype. It deals with different site conditions. It deals with different operations that have been outlined by the program. So the way that it goes together, there's probably going to be a few things here and there that don't match up 100%. Our track record with change orders, though, because of our quality control review, is below 0.5% for design-related changes. And what that means is changes in the documents that were caused by the architect or consultants or engineers. So we feel we do a very good job of combing through those or reconciling those when those come up and keeping the cost down. There's other changes that may come up, owner-related changes, adding things back into the contract, like the radios that we did across the street, or unforeseen conditions. What we do is we track those throughout the project. We keep a tally on different, the different sources that they're in and buckets that they're in. We capture those. And at the end of the project, you know, if there's egregious ones that had happened because the architect missed something, a water line into the building, you know, it's time for a discussion with the architect. There's no free lunch just because you have errors and omissions insurance. But the thing is to do it in a way that you don't want to do it right up front in the project. You have to work with that architect for a long time. You put them on notice and say, look, this was something egregious. You should have caught this. You know, the town may want to come back and back charge you for this, but let's move forward. So again, it's keeping the team moving towards that goal. But at the end, everybody's accountable.
If I can add to that, if the change order does come through, we do our homework, meaning that, say that there's a site change order, what we'll do is we'll get the price from the subcontractor, the site contractor. We'll forward it over to the site engineer to have him review the man hours, the machines used, the material used, just to get an idea if the estimate is in line, what he thinks the last estimate should be. And we'll do our homework prior to bringing it to the committee to get it signed to move forward on that, so.
How much time do I have?
You're getting close.
I know. I can feel it.
Couple of minutes.
All right. Just to finish a few points here. So the fire station building committee meetings, we can attend those as much as you know the town wants to have them. We'll run those. It's not anything new. And then owner vendor management, we talked about all those. Come on. There we go. Closeout, I can run through these quickly. You know, it's always difficult to get these at the end of the project. We start this process, you know, up front. When I get the schedule of values, I usually tell the general contractor that I want to see closeout documents as a line item in their schedule of values, because you won't get anything if you just don't have anything there. They'll just assume that they can close everything out. So we help the process along, but we also keep track of all this information. We help turn it over to the town, warranty items, punch list closeout, move management. We've moved many buildings, either occupied or unoccupied. We have a good move management list that we work through. It's always something that's helpful. Maintenance schedule. When towns get these, the biggest thing to get these buildings, the biggest thing is they don't know how the maintenance works. And HVAC is probably the biggest one. They don't know about changing filters or when they need to do this or clean that. We go through the specifications for the products and print out basically a maintenance list, things you need to look at for the first year of service, because it's not covered. Service is not covered by these contracts. Warranty items are, and that's the biggest pitfall of these new buildings is nobody's taking care of them. So turnover documents, they're pretty much the same thing, the packages of all this stuff that we sign off on. We do a one-year walkthrough after the project's been completed, and we're never gone. I live in Bridgewater. Alex lives in Bridgewater too. Bob's in Rockland, and Rick's in Plymouth. We're all very local. If you ever called us for anything, we will show up the next day, if not the same day, if there's an issue. We take pride in that. Do I have a couple more minutes? 2 minutes? All right, well, I have packets for you to go through, but I'll skip this slide then, just how we add value to the project. I think we've talked a lot about that, but I really wanted to just talk about why we think we're the best fit for Lakeville. We have proven results here. You know, I think the police station was a great project, and we're looking forward to delivering the same service, you know, that the town knew during that project. I think if you were to speak to anybody on that committee, they were very happy with our service and how we ran the project. So we know the players, we know how the town government works in town, we We understand the infrastructure of the town. Again, our location, we're very close to the project, makes things very easy for us to get here if there is an issue. Our natural heritage coordination, again, if you pick any one of those sites that we're looking at now, it's going to be turtles, so I'm already ready for it. You're a green community. We work with green communities all the time, so we understand that process and requirements. Town meeting results. Again, we go and speak in front of town meetings all the time and help sell these projects. That's the reason we're building Stoughton right now. We had to do we started in Stoughton in 2018. We just put a shovel in the ground 3 months ago. That's how long we've been pushing for a station there and politicking. So we'll go as long as it takes. The size of our company, again, we're a small company. We're made to be quick on our feet. And we're not going to take on a roster of big, large projects just to say we have them. We're only taking on exactly what we can manage at the time because we're looking for quality. And that's how we want to keep it. And I'm never going to change that. Our thorough knowledge of your radio infrastructure here, will have to be coordinated when you do the new fire station. The relationship with GCs and designers, again, they like to follow our projects. We see a lot of the same GCs and architects that bid our projects. And lastly, we really feel like we're public safety and fire station experts. Again, it's what we do day in and day out. We're doing 4 of them right now. We see it all the time. It's not the same as building a house. It's not the same as building a DPW. It's complex. It's understanding hot and cold zones of the design of a fire station or the equipment. There's a lot that goes into it, and we take pride in that. So, in closing, that's it. Thank you. I'm sorry if I went too quick, but again, thank you very much.
All right, Pete, would you like to start with just some questions for you folks as well?
So the first question we have, you touched on quite a bit. Work finished on time, and you said that it was, and within budget. You clearly said that everything was under budget. What experiences does your firm have in preventing design flaws, such as lack of storage, proper egress, disorganized layouts coming from the layout and coming to fruition?
So I would, I would say that we are part of the design process. We don't take any part of the design for granted. We sit, when the designer actually does their coordination meetings with the electrical engineer, plumbing engineer, the civil engineer, we sit in on those meetings. And it's just from years of experience of doing these projects that has helped us, especially with layouts. Architects will put layouts in front of us all the time, some that have not done too many fire stations, and we say, you got to change this. You can't move forward with this. And they say, what do you mean? And the biggest thing when it comes to design of a fire station is the safety of the individuals that are in the building, the firefighters. And with all the research that has come out recently about PFAS and chemicals in the fire that are staying on these clothes, these areas need to be separated. There's hot zones in a fire station, there's cold zones, there's warm zones. So that's the biggest thing we look at when we get plans from a designer. That's what I go to first. I like to see how a firefighter comes back from a call, how they get clean, and how they get back to their social area, the day room, if you have it. So it's being part of that design process and being part of the quality control review that we do. I think that we kind of help overcome those bumps that you might see.
Thank you.
This question here is a 2-part question. What are the primary risk factors associated with a fire station as opposed to other projects? And what trends have you observed with other fire station projects lately?
I hope I'm not going to be answering these all the same way. So say the first question again, I'm sorry.
It's about risk.
Risk.
What are the primary risk factors associated with a fire station as opposed to other projects? And what trends have you observed with other fire station projects lately?
Okay. So I'd say that your biggest risks with a fire station, again, are the safety of the individuals that are in it. But then also your IT radio, security, access control systems integration. And I'll add to that your alerting system. So imagine all those systems that I just said, when a call comes in, they all have to speak to each other and they all have to work. There is a ton of coordination that goes on, setting those systems up, working with the vendors to make sure that when that call comes in, the right things happen, because you're dealing with life at that point. So what you do is we work very early on with those vendors to start coordination meetings on how that's going to be implemented into the design documents, so that as you build up into the building and the building, starts to take shape, you have the right, you have the right pieces built into that contract for those systems to work. And they have to be coordinated just very closely. We've seen, I've seen issues where they're not on other projects, and it's not easy to fix. So we take a hardline stance on the coordination of kind of all those IT components that come into a project. And the second part of that, I think I kind of answered it, but it was what we've seen in other projects. Yeah. As far as what was the?
Just like the risks that you run into in designing and constructing a fire station. What have you seen lately? Cost control, schedule, all those types of things.
Yeah, I think for fire station, the biggest thing is probably the IT coordination in the hot zones. It's number one.
Madam Chair, am I allowed to ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
So could you give me like an example of the coordination of the IT features, say for like how it would apply to even the kitchen of a fire station?
Sure. So for a kitchen, well, it might not be directly IT related, but say a call comes in. So I guess it is, yeah. Call comes in, the alerting system comes up, and somebody's cooking on the stove in the kitchen at the time. There has to be the right solenoid in place that turns that gas off that the firefighter is using, because if he forgets to and goes to run out, and there's a gas burner going, hopefully somebody in the fire station can put it out, but that all has to be interconnected. There's parts of the kitchen that not only have to be give you quick ability to get out and get down to the apparatus bay, but again, that call has to be, it's linked. There's a link that goes with the stove in this case.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure I know he didn't answer this based on your other ones, but we have to ask anyhow. What strategies do you utilize to keep projects on schedule at minimal costs? And how would you describe your approach to project management?
Sure. Why don't I give you one that I kind of haven't talked about yet, is just simple action logs. And it's proven, everybody uses them, but one thing that people don't like to see on action logs is their name in red and that they're behind schedule. So we keep action logs updated for a reason. It's not only to keep the project on schedule and on course, but it keeps everybody, again, I keep saying it, but it keeps everybody, accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's, one of the main things we use. We do use, online services as well. We use Procore, Submittal Exchange. There's, different, cloud software programs that we use to keep things, on track. And the second part of the question, sorry.
I think you kind of answered well, the first part was how to keep it on schedule, minimal cost. The second part was your approach to project management.
Yeah, and I think our approach to project management is we like to control without being controlling. Is maybe the best way to put it. Is we are in charge during the project. Obviously, the town is in charge of us. We answer to the town. But we control the project without being too controlling. If we have to, slam our fist on the table, we will. But it's in our vision, it's not the way to run the project.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as far as the team aspect too, we're such a small company, we share constantly what's going on with all of our projects.
Yeah.
So if somebody can't be on site, if I have to run down and look at something, we know what's going on. So I like that about our company. We have a team approach with everybody, not internally and externally.
That's a good point. Every Monday morning, we have a project rundown where everybody at the company sits at a table and we go through every single one of our projects. Everybody gives an update. We feel, being a small company, that's one of our major advantages. Sometimes when you work with these larger companies, you're going to get two people, maybe at this interview that you never see again, and who knows who's going to be your project manager. It's a risk you're taking. And just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're better. We feel we do a great job the size we are.
So we're nearly out of time, so I'm gonna, I think probably be expeditious in responses to.
We can push them off, though.
Tell us a little bit how you prefer to handle routine communications with your clients and what strategies you implement to ensure successful transfer of information to committee members during a project.
Sure. So we like to usually establish a prime point of contact for the committee. And it's usually, the chair of the committee. In this case, it's probably the chair of the committee, the chief, and maybe the town administrator. Maybe there's 3 prime point of contact. It doesn't make any sense to, if we have a question or there's information, to send it out to the whole committee at that point. It's usually through, 1 or 2 people that we're, doing to keep everything, straight back and forth. And then if it is something that has to go out to everybody, we're free to share that. But it's a little less cumbersome when, you have a prime point of contact, I think, for everything. Say, for example, there's a change order and you need a quick decision, and the committee has established that any change order under $20,000 can be approved by those 3 people. At that point, I would reach out to those 3 people and say, look, this came up, we found it, we have a solution, it's going to cost, $5,000, it's under the threshold, and in order to keep this project moving, we need to make this decision now. Rather than calling a committee meeting, and can you approve it and move forward that way? So.
So you touched on this a little bit, but how do you approach projects where the site location has not yet been determined, and what tools would you use to identify relevant considerations and develop a final recommendation?
Sure. So the site is the biggest variable of any building project, period. So the first thing I'd like to do is get out on that site and start popping some holes, do some test pits, understand the geotechnical ramifications at it. We had a client that we were moving in the direction of a new station on, and they kept telling us that the land was perfect, that we didn't need to do any test pits, and we kept saying, we really recommend you do some test pits, and we got to the point where we were ready to build the building, and the geotechnical engineer came out and found that it was just sitting on a bunch of sod. And there was clay, and we had to do geotechnical piers everywhere throughout the site. It cost, an extra $1.5 million because they didn't want to do upfront site work. It's as simple as just getting a geotechnical on board to poke some holes in the ground. It's pretty simple. So yeah, you look at that, maybe a traffic study depending on how you plan to use, Bedford Street or the road coming into the camp. I know it's already congested there the way it is sometimes when there's baseball games and whatnot going on. So it might be something you look at, but it's really getting into the ground and understanding the soils is my biggest thing. Yeah.
Can you tell us about a specific municipal project challenge that you've had and how you addressed it?
Biggest, or just any? Yeah. All right, I'll give you one from, this was a library project on the Cape. And we had opened the building, and it was in operations. So we opened it in the fall, it went through the winter, and then in the spring and summer, they started to get this horrible, foul smell in the building. And we brought back in environmental scientists, we brought back in the architects and engineers. We could not figure out what this smell was. We checked everything. We did samples of everything. We were on site, pretty much daily, trying to figure out what the heck this smell was. Some days it was there, some days it wasn't there. And so just by chance, we were looking at, the carpet tiles, we were looking at, the glues, something here is smelling. We just couldn't figure it out. And so, just by chance, one of the things that we were looking into was the ceiling tiles. And we called Armstrong, who was the ceiling tile manufacturer, and we got them, we tried to go through the process with them, and, you know, something smells, you know, can we check the tiles somehow? And, oh, it's not the tiles, you know, they just kind of shoot us. Rick's phone rang the next day at, I think, 3 in the morning, and it was a representative from Armstrong. And he said, look, we think you might have a bad batch of tiles. We don't want to make this a big publicity thing. Can you read us what the manufacturing numbers are on the back of the tile? And if it's this lot, then I think we're going to have to come in and replace them all. And what they did was they ended up coming in and replacing them all. And what it was when you make ceiling tiles, is a process where they're dipped in water. And if that water isn't cleaned every so often, there's bacteria in that water. So they were dipped in this bacteria-filled water and let out the door. Now, being a national company, Armstrong said, if some people call us, great. You know, if not, then we're free. Well, we called. It was the bacteria heating up when the building got a little bit warm, got higher than 70, 71 degrees. The bacteria was heating up and actually, you know, causing the smell. So we got Armstrong back there, replaced the entire library, a 26,000 square foot library, free of charge. The smell was gone. Sorry, that's kind of a good one, I guess.
I like that.
I've got the last one. Please provide some examples of successful project advocacy and the strategies you employed in those efforts.
Sure. So I think that's one of the things that we're strongest at, kind of building that advocacy up for a project as it's about to, you know, go to town meeting, or even just getting buy-in to the project. We've done things as extreme as finding out who the naysayers are and inviting them for a cup of coffee, and just going and sitting down with them and just understanding, you know, what their issues with the project. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding they have. Maybe it's something that we can change in the project. We'll do videos for the town. We have a drone. We do flyovers of all our buildings. We incorporate that. It's just being open and out there in the public. Any public opportunity to be on TV, we'll do. It's about getting the right information out there, where everybody knows how Facebook is now. If, you know, somebody gets their opinion out there about what the cost of the project's going to be, and it's always the wrong number. And it's about stating the facts. And if we can get the facts out there, that's what's going to win. So it's about being ahead of those and presenting those in a manner that everybody can understand.
All right, well, that concludes our questions. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh gosh, when are you planning to make a decision?
Hopefully, you know, it'll be it's on the agenda tonight for discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to make a recommendation from the committee to the select board.
Great.
So that recommendation, if it's made this evening, would be on the agenda Monday evening with the select board.
Excellent. I don't think I have any other questions. No, I think I've talked enough.
Any closing remarks? You good?
No, I like I said, I would love the opportunity to work with the town again. We really enjoyed it. It was a great town to work with. And, you know, thank you for having us, and thank you for, you know, bringing us to this point. So appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, it was
Thank
very nice
you.
to meet
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we have a minute to use restrooms and after the next one kicks in?
LakeCAM would like to take a 4-minute break, please.
Laptop?
Oh, that one? No? Yeah, one of those. Excellent, thank you.
Still early enough where no one falls asleep yet.
Yeah, we have a hard rule, 8 o'clock, no meetings after 8.
Oh, that's right, that's great.
So you only have 5 minutes.
Excellent.
We'll make it quick.
I can work with that schedule.
But once you get all set up, then I'll just kind of walk through what this will look like for you this evening.
There we go.
All right, well, I'd like to say thank you for making the time to be available this evening to meet with us, to talk about this topic here in Lakeville. So you will have 20 minutes or 25 minutes to give us an introduction presentation. We do have a series of 7 questions that we'll be going around to ask you, but a lot of, we're finding that, you might be touching upon some of those, question items, and, we'll kind of take it from there. If there's, any closing remarks or any questions you might have after those questions, we'll gladly entertain those. But before we do get started, I think it might be beneficial for you if we go around the room and introduce ourselves, so that you know who is, here and as the makeup of this committee.
I'm Michael McCullough, I'm a member, at-large member.
Matthew Simon, member at large.
Michael Bryan, Fire Chief.
Kate Ching, member at large.
Peter Carmer, member at large.
Ari Sky, Town Administrator.
Lorraine Carboni, chair of this committee, and I'm the representative of the Lakeville Select Board.
Nathan Dowling, Building Commissioner.
Larry Costner, Finance Committee.
Excellent.
The floor is yours.
Thank you for having us. Colliers is happy to be here, very appreciative to be invited to the next stage of the selection. Just brief overview, Colliers, what we like to think is that the typical project has a whole lot of chaos going along. If you've been through these projects, architects, engineers, consultants, finance people, city administration, what we like to do is bring order to that chaos, and we're experts at it. And what we do as our day job allows you all to do your day job, knowing that many of you have other things to do than volunteer for this role in the committee. So bringing order to chaos is our first order of business. We know that as public officials, building committee members, certainly first responders, town officials, you have to be available to your constituents. We all make ourselves available to you as that representative. We extend that through many means to your constituents who are asking you questions, whether it's nights, weekends, they expect you to respond. We respond in kind. So we're your advocate. We want to become an extension of the committee and of the town services. And we always want to be promoting and helping you provide the information, transparency, accurate, timely information to your constituents. With us tonight, I'm Tony DeLuzio. I represent the subject matter expert. I head up our Public Safety, Police, and Fire Division. We have a director, Derek Osterman, out of the Rhode Island office. We've got several offices in and around. We'll touch on that in a minute. We don't have head of sales and marketing and business development. There's not a whole, well, there is a whole cadre of people who helped us put together all this lovely marketing information. But the folks that you see tonight that are here are going to be your core group. So while it will be one of us four really working the levers behind the scenes, I'm your day-to-day contact person. I'm the primary for this project as well as our other public safety projects. Joe DiPaolo is the senior project manager. He's going to be working, again, mostly day-to-day on this project, and I'll let each person introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their experience and expertise. Mike Dykins is our primary mechanical sustainability expert on this project, and Tao is our financial accountant person. They get assigned to every project. They help us manage our daily budgets appropriately. She provides all the Excel spreadsheets, locks them all out so we can't go in and manipulate the formulas. She jumps on us to make sure every date is correct and all the math is correct in there, helps us tie out, and really from a finance committee standpoint, any reports, cash flows, she's going to talk to you about that, knowing that you don't have to spend all the money today, and really helping manage the cash flow throughout the project. Mike?
I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike Dykins. I've been working in mechanical engineering pretty much my entire career. I've been doing this for almost 28 years now. I've worked on everything from hospitals to laboratories to high-rises to small police stations, fire stations, everything from military to commercial to private to public. So I've seen it all, and I feel like with my experience I've been able to really bring a lot of lessons learned as I go through my career. And working with your team, I think we can do the same. All the things we've picked up in the past, we can avoid a lot of those pitfalls and keep your design concise and really plan it for success.
I'm Joe DiPaolo. I'm a project manager out of the Providence office with Colliers. I have about a decade of project management experience. I have quite a diverse background in project management. I've worked with military projects in the past, commercial, residential, public, anything you could name. I've had my fingertips on it. I also have done a lot of renewable biogas projects in the past as well. So I'm just very happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Tao?
And I'm Tao Lin, project accountant with Colliers. I'll be handling the financial monitoring and reporting for the project. I have over a decade of experience in finance management. And you know, my specialty is in the public sector, and I love to help in any way I can, you know, spread as far as many communities as I can, because the few and, you know, wide projects that, you know, public communities do, they're costly, and, you know, we try to take care of all of our taxpayers that way, and so I'm here for you.
Great. So I won't spend too much time on this. You've seen our quals, which is happily what's got us to this phase. The red marks identify our offices, so Boston, Agawam out west, Providence just south of here, and Lakeville, you know where you are. And just a brief overview of some of our projects that were highlighted in our qualifications package. If there's any slide that you want to stop and ask questions on, please do so. So if there's any projects that jump out at you that you've seen in our quals that you want to know more about, just stop me along the way and we'll talk about it. But you can see we have 120 project managers across these offices. We've got another handful up in Maine. We've got a headquarters out of Madison, Connecticut. So we've got the area generally covered. Similar project experience. Some of these might be similar, not so recent. Franklin Fire Station, I was the senior project manager on that. That's built on the site of the cold storage fire in Worcester, Franklin Street. Ashby is a public safety combined facility, police over in this side that you see, and you can just see the fire apparatus bays on the other end. That was just completed back in December. happily moved in and living in there. Hudson Fire Headquarters. Somerville is a large public safety facility anticipated for 2025, and if you were concerned about timing on that as a large project, Mike and I are working on that. Joe is not working on it. Tao is involved in the financial aspect of it, but that project is officially on hold.
Tony, 2 questions real quick.
Yes.
Somerville facility, is that a joint use, is that a public police fire facility?
It is.
Okay. And you, on your references, you list Northfield. Can you
Yes.
tell us real quickly what the Northfield project is?
Northfield is a combined, they call it an emergency services because they combine their police, fire, and EMS are all separate departments. There's a separate EMS chief, police chief, fire chief. So they term theirs as an emergency services facility.
So it's fire and EMS?
Police, fire, EMS.
It's all 3, okay.
Yeah.
And is that, was that just, is it under construction, is it just finished?
So we went all the way through design. Town meeting appropriated money to buy the site. They bought 25-acre site. And then town meeting shut down the bids that we opened.
Oh, no.
They were under budget, under the estimate, but the town didn't feel that $13 million was appropriate for the project. So they're now looking at buying a much smaller building and trying to convert it for police and EMS and leave fire where they are.
Got it, okay, thank you.
So that opens up a whole lot of time in my schedule. Matt Sturz, not Joe DiPaolo, is working on that. John Bates was working on Somerville. He's now working on another project while that one's on hold. Mayor left Somerville. New mayor came in, said we need to stand down on everything for a while. Let's get the voters and the constituents figured out. All things police are under somewhat scrutiny in our larger cities, as you know from the news, so that one's taking a little bit more time to review. But we're here tonight to talk about Lakeville. We all haven't been involved in the project as long as you have, and while I have a brief understanding, it's only what I've been able to capture online. And so none of this is new to you, right? You completed a study in 2021. 12 FT firefighters, 22 call firefighters. You know, we need to make sure that you're planning for growth. And what is that growth? Because I didn't see that identified anywhere. We know today indoor air quality issues and health standards for firefighters, $220,000 is appropriated to get through the SD phase. Somewhere it was mentioned in there that getting out the vote is important. So we wanted to carry a slide to tell you our role in helping you achieve that vote. What we know today and considerations that we bring to the table for you are equally as important. It mentioned confirming the site. So getting out and doing site due diligence, whether it's surveys, geotechnical, utility investigations, really nailing down what's it going to take to make that site appropriate to receive the building, and if there's an early site enabling package, whether it's curb cuts, site utilities, how do we make that site today the most appropriate for a general contractor to come in and hit the ground running, right? We don't want to award a contract and then have to wait six months for Eversource or whomever to pull power in there and give us a transformer. Maybe there's not water there, or, you know, we need to make sure all of that permitting, all of our utilities are there and appropriately set up to make the site available for construction. Building systems, green energy, stretch community. We actually have a new energy code coming into play July 1. So buildings are going to go through drastic energy changes and analysis in order to make them meet the new code. We've had a lot of economic changes from when your study was done, and we anticipate that this is probably a building that gets completed 2025. So what are those economics throughout that time frame? We want to look at CM at risk with you and design, bid, build, sustainability. Mike will get into supply chain issues. Joe will be chasing with a designer to make sure that we're specifying materials that we can actually get that aren't so long a lead time that we just can't get it anymore. And then really, the bottom line, how do you all want to measure success? In our school projects, it's pretty easy. School starts, we all know when school starts. We got to have the building open. In other places, it might be the cash registers need to be ringing if it's a commercial building. How are you going to measure the success of this project? Cost, quality, schedule, those are kind of the three metrics that we like to drive on throughout the entire process, because at any one point in time, you, the building committee, you're going to be asked to balance that, right? Do we want to give up a little schedule to save some money? Do we want to spend some money to accelerate the schedule? What are we putting in for materials? Is it a durability versus initial cost? All of those types of questions we feel are going to come back to you, the committee. So we need to do our homework and bring you the most educated information we can so that you can make the best decision for the entire community. Public outreach, get out the vote. This was a project, Ashby, that we were working on back during the pandemic. And we actually set up a card system where voters were pulling into the high school field in their car. They were given a red and a green index card to hold out the window for the vote. It was broadcast over their AM radio, so the select board was up in the little pavilion area. We had the town lawyer up there and all the appropriate people. We were doing the presentation, and they were given a chance to hold the card out, yes or no. The count folks were walking up and down between the cars, staying 6 feet apart from everybody, counting all the cards. It was quite the process, but it passed vote and the project got built. And then this bottom photo, we did a couple of YouTube videos with the police chief walking people through the design, posted that to YouTube, so it's there forever for folks to see. And we did a couple of Facebook live chats where we, Colliers, set up a Facebook live chat linked off the town's website. But it wasn't a posted public meeting. There was no quorum. It was the OPM and the architect, and the public could come on with whatever Facebook social media name. It wasn't Mary from Maple Ave or whatever. And they were just free to get on there for an hour, ask questions, talk about the project, talk about what they liked, didn't like. And the architect and I really just kind of fireside chat for an hour with the constituents. And we really think that helped sell the project. Now I'm going to turn it over to Joe so I can stop talking for a moment. And he's going to take us through design and construction administration.
Thank you. So this is the most, in my opinion, the most optimal phase of the project, right? So this is where we sit down, we discuss the needs and wants of our client, and we try to bridge that gap between their needs and wants and what we have to offer and what our budget is. And we kind of come together with the estimator and see where we could all meet a common ground. And that is a major component to what we do, is we want to make our client happy and walk away from the project satisfied on all accounts. So like Tony was saying before, the budget, the scope, the quality, the schedule, those are all valued metrics that we possess at Colliers that we take very seriously. And we break down our components here with you to really emphasize what it is that you need. So if there's any, for example, if there's any programs that go on, whether it's a school, you're working at a hospital, we try to take into consideration all those key components and meet a common ground with all of you. Go to the next one. Construction phase. This is a portion of the project where our colleague Rui Almeida was going to be present today. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. I've actually had the fortunate opportunity to work side by side with him. He is a very interesting person. He actually comes from Europe. He's worked with the EU Parliament, has done many projects with the President of Portugal, believe it or not. So he has quite a bit of experience in his pocket. So it is quite an honor to have worked with him previously. But essentially, what we do at Colliers during the construction phase is we're your eyes and ears on the ground. So in other words, as the construction progresses throughout the project, we are going to be give daily reports every day, what has gone on. If there's an inspection that's going to be going on, any kind of testing, we'll be there to sign off, make sure it's getting done, make sure different contractors are showing up on site, and we will be reporting to you directly and making sure that that information gets disseminated daily, and provide also a weekly report that shows the progress done every single week. Transparency and communication in this phase of the project, and any phase of the project, but especially this one, is absolutely vital, just to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, what's been done, and even knowing what's ahead and what to expect ahead of time. So there's no surprises. Everybody is in the loop and is very familiar with the project and its current state.
Thanks, Joe. Tal?
So I'm just gonna talk about finances just for a little bit. So what you see here is just a sample dashboard that we provide all of our clients. It gives you all of your information for all of your building committee meetings. It has charts for the people who don't want to see the itty bitty numbers that just make your heads explode. But what we're here for is to help you with cost management, right? We're tracking all of your invoices, your purchase orders, your contracts, and making sure that we're tracking any rebates, incentives, grants we may get along the way as well. There's a lot of moving pieces to funding, and I'm here to help you appropriate that at the appropriate times. Making sure that we're keeping your contingency status reporting on block with Joe and Rui, making sure that all of these change orders and RFIs that come up are managed in a timely manner, making sure that these costs are validated, and we negotiate all of that on your behalf. And just becoming a part of your team. I know everything is just, rising right now in cost, and we're here to help you, get the most education on this information, because even though we're all trudging through this, it's just great to be educated in a way where we're able to explain that to the public, right? Because everything is just clarity and transparency on this market. And where we bring the most value is our cash flow and burn rate forecast. A big part of my role is cash flow development, making sure that we're able to hit, target cash goals, and we're hitting targets, and we're course correcting if appropriate if we're not hitting these schedules. I just hope that, we're able to work together and, pay off all of these expenses along the way.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we often hear from communities, we don't want to have too much money on hand, but we got to have the right amount of money all the time to pay the bills. So we don't get too heavily into the munis reports and those types of things, but Tao does work with our communities each month to tie out, make sure we're hitting all of the budgets, make sure things are being categorized, and that we are audit proof. And a lot of that comes out of bigger school MSBA projects where we need to drive that audit quite heavily. These projects aren't being scrutinized by the state, but we still apply that across all of our projects as audit ready.
The cash flow aspect's very important.
Yes. Yeah. And so we'll take the entire project schedule and load the cash right into it so that hey, this year we need $500,000. Next year we're going to spend the big nut. Mike?
Yes, so sustainability is going to be one of the biggest goals. As you know, with the new energy codes that Tony just mentioned, trying to design a building that runs as efficiently as you need it to, but also provides the indoor air quality and the ventilation rates that you're hoping to provide for your occupants. Not to mention the vehicle bays and everything else they'll have specific ventilation requirements. It becomes a bit of a balancing act between making the building healthy for the people, getting a system that can meet the new sustainability goals, and to do that you're using some of the newest technology that's going to be out there, whether it's ground source heat pumps or variable refrigerant systems or variable volume air handling systems. Some of these systems you most likely don't have today in the current fire department building, but they will be present in the new building. What we'll try to do with you, or not we'll try, we will do this with you. As a mechanical engineer and a technical expert in these systems, It's my goal to get the systems designed properly, or to ensure that the engineers are designing them properly, that they're getting installed properly, but more importantly, that your team is going to be able to operate the building. You most likely have contractors either that you call for service calls, or you have a staff with the DPW or some members of your team that will be coming in to do regular maintenance and service calls, things like that. We need to make sure that these people know how the building runs and what to do if there's a problem, how to maintain it, and how to keep it operating at peak efficiency. So that's really going to be the technical expertise goal that I provide, as well as my team. We've got about 8 mechanical engineers that help all these projects that Tony and this team work on, so that our clients don't get lost in that technical mumbo jumbo that becomes mechanical systems.
Yeah, and we know that, schools, higher education, colleges, universities, larger cities have facility directors for the entire community. A lot of our public safety, police or fire buildings don't have a dedicated person in charge of their facility operations. So we want to make sure that our systems that you are engaging are as simple as possible to use. They need to meet all the criteria that Mike talked about, but we want to keep it simple. We want to make sure that it works well for the building occupants as well as long-term operational expense. Joe, get us moved in.
So FF&E is definitely a phase of the project that causes excitement and frustration from time to time, but if you do it well in an organized manner and have some forethought going through, it really can be seamless. For example, I've done a lot of school projects at universities or high schools, and getting furniture in there and trying to balance time between students coming in, faculty, having different schedules, and being able to get the furniture in there without kind of bombarding them or stepping on their toes. It could be a bit of a challenge, but when you communicate that with whomever you're working with and coming up with a set game plan, it could really be an enjoyable experience, seeing that new furniture coming in and really seeing your new facility coming together. Procurement, that kind of goes back to, kind of coincides a little bit with the financials, making sure you're on budget, making sure that the different pieces of furniture are coming in, everything's cataloged, making sure that the movers show up. We'd like to really stay on top of that and make sure this is a seamless process. Closeout phase, this is where the project gets really exciting. We typically, at this point of the project, everything's coming to a close. We're seeing, our facility or building really coming alive, and everybody's getting excited. But however, there's a punch list. So a punch list, if anybody doesn't know, is just a small items list that shows, maybe some touch-ups that have to be done here and there. A small wall needing some paint. A small install, maybe a security camera or some lighting. And then training is also very important. So for example, if you have a new central air system that somebody's not used to, maybe an alarm system, being able to train up anybody who will have to come across that daily is very important. So we'll work with you to set that up. O&M manuals, operation maintenance manuals. So if you have maybe a generator on site, solar panels, anything of the like, we'll be able to provide how to operate it and maintain it, and also any trainings that are relevant to some of those items. We'll brush you up on that and make sure whoever needs it.
Great.
As built, towards the end of the project, we'll have finalized drawings, final commissioning report. This is where our commissioning team will come in, make sure everything works, plumbing, sewage, lighting, central air, things like that. And then we'll finish up the closeout process.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
So the Collier's Advantage I've been dedicated for over 30 years now to police, fire, public safety facilities. So when we talk about vehicle exhaust extraction systems, washers, dryers, gear lockers, all of the things that are near and dear to the fire services, you have that expertise. In-house sustainability and commissioning. We have another entire entity within Colliers that provides full commissioning services for buildings, separate from the projects that we work on. So a lot of their work is independent of us, but we're able to share in that experience and expertise in-house. A lot of companies, a lot of owner project manager firms don't have that expertise in-house. So if we're having an issue, you get the benefit of being able to draw off that expertise in-house at no additional expense to your project. Utility rebate program, Tao touched on that. Generally $1 to $2 a square foot. We'll work with utilities, gas savings incentives, electrical incentives, whether it's lights, ballast, drainage systems, going after state grants for environmental, working with if you have an energy commission in town, they might be working on some state programs that we're able to take benefit of on your behalf. But it generally works out to a couple bucks a square foot. We just want to be an extension of your team. We come in, I wouldn't say we infiltrate like locusts, but we certainly want to be part of your team. We want to be the first call, not the call you make 3 phone calls Saturday later, right? Get us, we'll get the right expertise on it. We want to deliver that service to you as well as what you want to deliver to your constituents. And I think our references certainly speak in that regard. So if you reach out to any of them, you'll find that we're constantly available, always prepared, always able to get back to you if the information isn't immediately available. Certainly we want to get back to you with the most appropriate, accurate information in the most timely manner. And with that, I'll turn it over to you folks for questions. And depending on your question, I'll field it and then hand it off to the appropriate team member.
So, I'll start. Some of this you already touched on. Could you provide us with information on recent projects in regards to on time and budget? And also, it's a 2-part question. Could you touch on how you prevent your design flaws, such as storage, egress, and/or design or disorganized layouts, and how you sort of work through those?
Sure. So I'll touch on that, and then I'll throw the design piece to Joe, who's managing our design portion. Recently completed West Boylston Police Station. That was about a $7 million project. It was turned over to the community. It was $400,000 under budget, and it was on schedule. Ashby completed $200,000 under budget. Their total project cost was $7.505. Sounds familiar to me. That one was a financial management process and a half. They went with a federal USDA loan. So we had money that had to be audited through the federal loan process. You're familiar with it?
Pretty familiar with it.
Yeah, people come up from Connecticut, from the USDA, federal government, walk the building, certify the pay rec with us. Town made sure the pots were all in the right order. They closed out their loan seamlessly. We did all the financial reporting, so there's another level of financial reporting on that because of the USDA loan. So Tao and I sat with the town and the USDA folks, made sure all of our reports, her reports, I should say. Her reports are our reports, they're your reports. Made sure they were all tied out. So every month, the feds got a report on all their money, where everything went, what was allowed, what's not allowed. And that one closed out in December on time. Joe, how do you manage a designer to not overload a project on creep and get his operations in order? Designers are like herding cats.
Yes, sometimes, unfortunately.
So that's what I was really going back to before, is being able to have that transparency between the client and us and the architect, and making sure that we're meeting your needs and wants. But also with that, that allows us to prevent any delays in your project. And that's why a lot of these projects that we've done in the past have become, within schedule and within budget, because having that optimal transparency between us and our client is what has really made us successful.
Yeah, and it's a design review process at every phase. That you're not sending off a designer with a budget to say, bring me back a building plan. We're involved, we attend all those meetings. Joe or I will be at each design meeting sitting with you. And I always like to relate things to houses that people can understand, right? It's 3 bedrooms, every one of them's got a closet. How big is the closet? What do we want to store in that closet? Fire guys will find places to store stuff in a building that we never thought they would store. And they will find things to store that we never thought they would have to store. So we do have to be aware of that. Midnight construction happens the minute we leave the building. We'd like it not to happen for at least a couple years.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, two-part question here about risk. What are the primary risk factors associated with a fire station as opposed to other projects? And what trends have you observed with fire station projects recently?
So a lot of the risk right now is in lead time. Overhead doors in Ashby, it's just crazy the things that supply chain pipeline issues. So making sure that we have transformers are very difficult to get. That's not fire station specific, it's on everything, but we need to make sure we get it ordered. Overhead doors are very critical, and they're running a long lead time. They can't get the insulation that goes in the panels. So there's companies that say, we can stamp out the sections of the sectional doors, we just can't get the insulation, so it does us no good. Those are some of the issues specific to fire stations. There's always water issues specific to fire stations, whether we're washing the apparatus inside, outside, floor drains. We need to make a building that keeps the apparatus as dry as possible. That's going to increase the longevity of your millions of dollars of equipment that are stored in this building, because we don't want to be buying new apparatus every time the bottom erodes out of it. Where those drippings go, Mike and I then get involved in grease sand trap interceptors. Drains go in the floor, it drips the grease, the sand, the salt off the bottom of the truck. Needs to go into a tank. We need to have that tank pumped out and cleaned, or you need to do it after we're gone. But we need to make sure those systems are in place. There's the risk. This particular project type. Your second question was?
It was, what trends have you observed with other fire station projects
So,
recently?
Trends really come down to what was highlighted on Mike's slide, is the separation of carcinogens. How can we make this building as safe and comfortable for those folks working in it? And what we like to do with these 3 silos, health and wellness. That's health and wellness of the occupants, the firefighters, EMTs, whoever's working in that building. And there's some career personnel, there's some civilian personnel usually as well. Resilience is keeping the building itself resilient, right? And then energy is long-term use operating, where the chief isn't walking in saying, my building is extremely expensive to operate on a yearly basis. So we want to focus on those. But the biggest trend over the past 8-10 years maybe is still dealing with the carcinogen separation, the wash down, the medicals. We went through a pandemic where none of us designed buildings for 6 feet of separation. Bunk rooms didn't have independent separate ventilation units. We've had to go in and retrofit that. Mike was involved in a few projects with me where, we're fortunate to have newer air systems in buildings, but they weren't the right filter. If you swap out the filter for a more dense filter so that you're cleaning the air better, now you've got to increase the fan output so that you're getting the same airflow through a much more rigid filter, if you will. So those are the kind of trends that we've been seeing.
What strategies do you utilize to keep the project on schedule at minimal costs? And secondly, how would you describe your approach to project management?
So keeping things on schedule is always one of the top three, right? Cost, quality, schedule. The best thing we can do is understand what your schedule drivers are right up front. How are we going to measure that? And that's from our first meeting, talking about everything from community parades, community holidays, fire department schedules, what goes on in the neighborhood that we're going to be building this in, right? Let's understand all those scheduled parameters. When is funding? When do we go to the next town meeting? Right? Those become the milestones. And then Joe and I will sit and develop a schedule that says, okay, we've got $220,000 to get through schematic design. When's that need to be done? That needs to be done. When do we need funding for the next phase? Town meeting, back up, when the warrant goes in. So we need to lay all that out with you right up front. That's the best way to manage schedule. Joe and I in designer selection take that same information and embed it right in the designer's contract. If you're going to hold us to it, we're going to hold the designer to it, and then what's left over of that schedule is going to be for construction, right? So we need to plan out the next 2.5, 3 years, whatever it is, and lay that in everybody's schedules, and then make them march to it. And you'll be in charge of it. You'll know if there's a blip. You'll know if town meeting doesn't pass something and we got to bump 6 months, or we got to bump 3 months to a special town meeting. You're going to know that well in advance. Designers right now are incredibly busy. They are incredibly busy. There is a lot of work on the street right now. Police, fire, schools, and there's only so many designers that specialize in police and fire work. I used to say there was 5, there's probably 8 now that do most of the work in New England, and there is no shortage. So we need to really drill down on who's available, who's got the best A-team available, who's just come off projects, and what their success rate is with their team. And then we'll funnel that through the system so that you'll know you're getting a team that's got the capacity to meet your schedule.
Tell us a little bit about how you handle routine communications with your clients and what strategies you implemented to ensure successful transfer of information to committee members during your project.
Okay, so a host of forms, right? In today's technology, we have, as Joe mentioned, daily field reports, design review logs, budgets, monthly reports. Help me out, Joe. You want to send them, you want to email them? Oh, websites. Everybody wants a website now. You want a project website? You know, so we will engage our IT. We'll engage marketing if that's helpful for you. The city of Beverly right now, we're doing a city hall project up in Beverly. They're now working with our marketing team and their in-house IT to develop a web page. So the marketing stuff that you see here with the logo and the town stuff, our marketing people are actually helping their IT set up the web page. So we'll provide the graphic support. We'll do some of the illustrative writing of, City Hall's the old Cabot house from 1856, and it's going to be renovated and beautiful. And so we can help with some of those types of reports as well. But that's the transparency in the reporting. Pretty much everything is standardized on Microsoft systems, so we're not looking for you to do anything other than read Word documents, Excel documents. All TAO's reports are Excel generated, so anybody can open them, review them, look at them, work through them with us. Field reports are done in Word. Any type of presentation is done in PowerPoint. Mike, design review logs are Excel mostly.
Yeah, we have a system where we can track items as the project rolls forward. It's a web-based system, but we can also export that into Excel. It really depends on how tech savvy your team is. Some people love to have that web interface so they can just see things kind of in real time. And then other people would rather just have a printout at a meeting, just because that's what they're more comfortable with. And whatever you're more comfortable with is what we'll do. So whatever works.
So how do you approach projects where the site location has not yet been determined, and what tools do you use to identify relevant considerations and develop a final recommendation?
Good question. So I did read like confirmation of the site, but are you considering this may not be the site? And we might do a more robust site selection?
So in the feasibility study, I believe there were 3 different site options that were reviewed. And at this point, no site has been finalized.
I thought there was a preferred, and somewhere I read confirm that it is the preferred site.
It was a recommended site, but the board is not fully committed.
Okay. We have a site matrix. I could dig around and try to find it, but it would take too much time. We want to help you look for a site. With fire stations, there's some geographic considerations that are critical to locating a fire station, headquarters, substations, depending on, we want to look at train tracks, bridges, those geographical transportation issues that would impede time of response. So that might be our primary, right? Considering this as a fire station. Working the time analysis, there's several softwares that can run time analysis from anywhere within Lakeville. You're able to then look at mutual aid, who's helping from where, how quickly can somebody get a response there. After that, we start to look at the general site, right? We want to look at subsurface. Is there potential for ledge? Is there potential for contamination on site? What was there before? Is it pre-developed? Is it permitted? Is it permittable? Is it all wetland and we got to replicate at 2 to 1 somewhere else within the same zone? So we have robust matrix. We have site civil folks on hand. We didn't bring that entity tonight, but we have those folks that we can bring to the table. We want to look at what utilities are available, what subsurface conditions. Do you own the property? Or is there a cost of procurement that we now have to tack onto the budget, right? And that might be a consideration. If there's a public search, do we need to advertise? Does anybody have 6 acres of land or whatever the acreage is that we're looking for, so that we're generating some interest, right? And some people come forward. You know, I'll parcel off 6 acres for you. That would be great if they'd donate it, right? And not ask for any money. That would be a great donation to the fire services. Thank you. We'll take it if you got it. But yes, we'll put together a matrix. We'll walk through your 3 or 4 or 5 sites. It's pretty robust. We did that with Northfield. We've done that with several communities. Thank you. Yep.
Can you tell us about a specific municipal project challenge you've experienced and how you addressed it?
Well, I'd like to say Somerville's a challenge, but we haven't addressed that since the mayor put the whole thing on squash. You know, a lot right now of our project challenges have dealt with the financial piece. Costs since 2 years ago have skyrocketed. Construction materials are up, and we're dealing with that in one of 2 ways. A lot of communities, we do a lot of work for the city of Fitchburg. For whatever reason, they've decided to just throw a lot of our ARPA funds at it and make the issues go away. I don't know how communities do that. I'm not an expert in that. Ashby threw a little bit of ARPA money at it to cover some costs. We're working with the state of Rhode Island on a state police barracks. They've gone back to the governor to say, hey, we need $5 more million than what we thought 3 years ago. It's really, the thing that I'm most concerned with any project today about is your financing. And how do we make that gap? How do we make up any gap that may have occurred between feasibility study report in 2021? Estimators will always use the midpoint of construction. So if we're sitting here today and we're trying to figure out what the midpoint of construction is, And I said, okay, we're gonna hurry up, you're gonna hire us next week, we're gonna get a designer on board in 6 weeks. We've got site selection, let's call that another 2 months, we get through that really quickly. And we've got 8 months of design. We're already tracking out to 2025 for the midpoint of construction. So at 6% a year since 2021, do that math on top, and how do we get there? Or how do we scale back? And is that we're just lopping an apparatus bay off and it becomes a future add-on later? Or how do we bridge that gap? And that's my biggest concern for your project right now, is the financial piece.
We're out of time.
Okay.
You know, fitting within that schedule. And I want to say thank you very much, like I said before, for making yourselves available this evening to be here with us. I'll just leave it. Did you have a question for us?
No real questions, just if you can run through what your selection timing process is, then I won't be calling you every day going,
All right. No,
is there a decision? Is there a
I
decision?
had a feeling that
It's
might
Friday.
be the
Can you
question. That's
make
the
my
only reason
weekend?
why. This committee will deliberate after we conduct all the interviews this evening. I will ask the committee to make a vote, a recommendation to the select board. In that case, the select board will be meeting Monday evening. That would be on the agenda.
Wow, okay, so that quick.
Yeah.
Awesome. As the building committee, now that we're talking, as I'm taking this down, as your project moves forward, does the building committee have financial authority of any kind to like enter into agreements, change orders? How is that generally handled in town?
The charge allows the building committee to approve change orders of less than $20,000.
Oh, good.
Above that, has to go to select board.
Yeah.
And obviously, town meeting has to approve the budget for the project.
Yeah, it's good that you have that process. A lot of communities have their building committees with no authority other than to recommend to the select board. And then we get into this issue where, Mass General Law says payment has to be made. Building committee met last week. Next week is an off week for the select board. Then there's the holiday, and all of a sudden, nobody can get anything done for 4 weeks.
Actually, to clarify, the charge allows change orders amount of $20,000 must be requested by the building committee and approved by the town administrator. Anything above that gets approved by the select board.
So building committee brings it to you, the town administrator, you're good to go.
Right.
Excellent. He signs it, we're all good.
It's the plan.
All right, well, thank you all.
Thank you.
We
Thanks
really
so much for your
appreciate
time.
being invited.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you all.
You too, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just start off by saying thank you for making the time to be available to come in and meet with us this evening. So we have an opportunity to, get to know what you're all about. So I guess we've got about 45 minutes, to work with you, and 20 minutes or so for you to go through your presentation. We do have a series of about 7 questions that we'd like to ask you after the fact. And then if you have any questions or closing remarks at that point. But before we do get started, I think it would be beneficial if we were to introduce ourselves to you so you know who we are as the players on this committee.
Great, thank you.
I'm Michael McCullough, member at large.
Matthew Simon, member at large.
Michael Bryan, Fire Chief.
Kate Shane, member at large.
Peter Conroy, member at large.
Ernie Scott, town administrator.
Lorraine Carboni, chair of this committee, and the representative from the select board.
Great.
Nathan Dowling, building commissioner.
Larry Coxman, representative of Finance Committee.
Great. I'll introduce myself and I'll let Alyssa introduce her. Well, first of all, good evening, and I really appreciate the opportunity to interview for your OPM position for the fire station. I know you recently just finished the police station, and it's finally an opportunity for the fire chief to get his building So it's gonna be great. I live locally in Carver. I've actually done a lot of projects. First of all, I gotta ask, do you like this building? Yeah, because I actually was a PM on this building with Dalos projects before we took it over. That's where I worked in New Bedford as well.
I thought you were familiar.
Yeah, you bet. We did the Hannigan School together.
Yeah,
Yeah, you bet. So we have a small presentation. It's about 15 minutes. We're looking forward to the questions because that's where you're going to really get to know who we are and what we're all about. At any time through our presentation, don't hesitate on stopping and asking us if you got any questions related to any of the slides or information that we're providing. Again, my name's Joe Sullivan. I've been with CHA. We were acquired by CHA 4 years ago. I was with Daedalus Projects. I've been with them for over 22 years. I've actually completed over 15 fire stations in my career, and I've worked with Alyssa on currently 6 of those. I'm MCPPO certified. I have my unrestricted construction supervisor license. I've been involved with Carver Fire Station. I recently finished the Middleborough Police Station. I finished the Onset Fire Station, and I'm currently working with Alyssa with the Bridgewater Fire Station. So we know the area, I know it well, and I know the town of Lakeville real well because I grew up in this area as well. I know the experience, and I bring a wealth of knowledge associated with fire stations, programs, and what it takes to build a successful fire station for the next 50 years. With that, I'd like to introduce Alyssa.
Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Shatani. I'll be your project manager and your day-to-day contact. Like Joe mentioned, we've worked on 6 fire stations together, but I've actually worked on more than 20 projects, all of them with him. So we're kind of the dynamic duo at CHA. So I came from Consigli Construction before my time at CHA. So I did construction management there. I was in the field full-time. Now at CHA, I've shifted to being a project manager on different sites, managing projects with Joe. So I'm MCPPO certified as well. This year I got my CCM, which is Certified Construction Manager. And last year I got my MBA. So I keep busy on the side, but really excited to get to know the team, and Joe will tell you about some of our subject matter experts.
Thank you, Alyssa. So I wanted to give you a little bit more about the depth of our firm. We're one of the only OPM firms in the state of Massachusetts that has in-house cost estimating. And what does that mean for Lakeville? That means that our estimating team does approximately 16 estimates a month, and we know the exact cost for every sub-trade, general contractor trade, that are performing similar projects and other projects throughout the Commonwealth. Day to day, there's not a time that when we're not going over change orders or any other information related to construction costs that we're going to get an accurate number right then and there. Additionally, we perform an in-house design review with each step of the way, from conceptual all the way to construction documents. We have in-house architects along with in-house engineers that will actually review not only the details on the drawings. As a building commissioner, you've seen drawings, but how often are details missed on it that should have been in the specifications, and then it's a change order. What we try to do is we do a complete design review. I have a list of probably 9 pages of uh-ohs that happen with design firms that they just, unfortunately, some designers do cut and paste. They try to carry over similar designs to other fire stations. Having gone through that and found out some of the challenges with that, we make sure that they're not repeating the same deficiencies, and we try to catch them ahead of time. And lastly, we all know that, and I can tell you from the fire stations, not one firefighter I know likes to sleep in the same temperature as another firefighter in one of their rooms. And one of the hardest things that I've found, and it goes from schools, but fire stations particularly, is the HVAC systems. And we have an in-house commissioning agent that actually reviews point to point of every system from conceptual to construction. And what does that mean? That means that I know for a fact that the system design is installed appropriately, and the system installed appropriately is working as designed. And so that means that, like, I know for a fact that when people are in their resident dorm, they want to be able to set the temperature at X and not have to open a window and then the HVAC system goes haywire. So it's really effective to go through that process. Next slide, please. Now, your project, I actually spent a little bit of time looking at it, and I actually did a little bit of research as you guys done a really great job evaluating some of the sites. I've read through the study that was done initially, and each of these locations, you know, there was some pluses and minuses, but it appeared that option 3 was your preferred site overall. Is that fair to say?
This is the recommended site.
Recommended site hasn't been set yet.
All right. What I did find is that the site, that site particularly off of Precinct Street gives it, and I did a quick takeoff on what would be the response times from that location. It looked like it was going to suit most of Lakeville's needs. It's not quite where the old station was, but I think based on where it was, where the police station and the complex that you were suggesting or they were recommending might work. But the sight lines coming out of it were great. You do have a residential area that's right across the street that, looking at it, they're set back enough and far enough away where I don't think you're going to need any type of lights at all for your dispatch. As your apparatus shown on that plan has a location showed it was discharging right onto there, and it looked like it was going to be a great location overall. One of the things that I noted as well is that, Lakeville, although your population is very large, it's dispersed, and your department has currently 12 full-time firefighters and 22 call firefighters. Carver we had 4 full-time fire stations over in Carver when we built it, and there's 60 on call. So it's a whole different dynamics as far as how the operations work. Yeah, I know you typically would have a shift commander and 3 or 4 people on shift at any given time. Is that how it typically is right now?
4 3-person groups, a deputy and a fire chief.
Great. So that dynamic is for and you have 1 ambulance that you run currently right now?
We have 2 active ambulances and a reserve ambulance.
Great. So understanding all of that, your call firefighters, a lot of towns don't have call firefighters and they have full-time. So it's a different dynamic and program that you run with the department. In Carver, their claim to fame was that they were able to get to a location with the quickest response time because they leave right from their vehicle to the site, and then the group goes to the apparatus and pulls the apparatus equipment to get there. Is it similar to most of the guys have your equipment as well?
You mean
their turnout gear?
You with them?
Yeah.
I'm trying to discourage it due to the carcinogens and things like that. But.
So I recommend the same. We've tried to have enough locker space and turnout gear within the apparatus bay, but we positioned it appropriately so that it was a quick delivery of where they parked the cars, got their gear, and were able to get on the apparatus. So the location itself in Lakeville, and you haven't guaranteed that this is going to be the spot. It's just one of the recommendations out of the conceptual design. Is that right? So what we will do, and knowing that where you're at right now, we're going to help you solicit a designer and actually go through these processes a little bit more in detail. You didn't have an OPM when the selection was recommended, and we bring enough expertise between Alyssa and I to really evaluate, what they're proposing, what they're doing, and talk with the program needs of the department to really assure that whatever location of the choice is done appropriately and cost effectively on that. You can go to the next slide. I understand fire stations. There's different dynamics to having a hot space versus your living quarters, and I know firefighters, when they leave their house and their family, they need to feel comfortable and safe and feel like there's a separation between the contaminants that they're going to fight on a daily basis to where they're actually placing their head and sleeping at night. Having a decompression area where they can actually come off of a catastrophic event, whether it's a car accident, a house fire, or a loss of life, it affects firefighters. And I feel that, we don't put enough thought into assuring that when the firefighters get back, they can have that space in that area to decompress. The response time coming out of your head house area to the apparatus has to be clean and precise. Just like having an alarm go off in the middle of the night and firefighters getting up and going, the excitement and adrenaline is there, but we've got to also make sure that's a safe path of egress to get from point A to point B. We also know that your decon space, as you come back from an event, you want to be able to get out of that gear, get cleaned up, and get into a great space. So the negative air between apparatus and head house has to be essential, and that's your HVAC system that we were talking about. And a lot of times, engineers design it, but they're not thinking about what the end user is actually going to be utilizing on that. We meet closely with the engineers of record on each department on that aspect to make sure that, you know, what the design intent is and how we're going to do it. Through that process, we'll meet with each of the departments, with the fire department, and really understand what your needs are. And then make sure the meeting minutes are taken appropriately and dispersed so that what you said you wanted, you get in those drawings when we're done. And too many times that you'll have a meeting and half the information gets actually implemented, and then you're chasing it down the road as we move from design to design. Ambulances, one of the lessons learned that I had and recently from a fire station was that they put radiant heat in the apparatus bay. Well, that's great. How often do we have temperatures under 0 degrees? Because they only design it up to 7 degrees with most HVAC systems. What I found is that when the doors flew open and we had -7 degrees, the ambient temperature in that apparatus dropped down. When the ambulances drop back, you have to have 65 degrees on an ambulance at any given time for any of the medical supplies that you have. Knowing that, we needed to have, Town of Sharon was this example. We ended up having a apparatus bay with no makeup air heat. So every time the doors flew open, they come back to a 50-degree temperature, and it took them almost 2 hours before it got up to 65, which was unacceptable. The good news is that while I was working with the town, they had aprons on the front of their fire station that they had some radiant heat in that location as well. I was able to work with the mechanical engineers. We put 2 Modine units in that could be fed off of the boiler. I put a system in where it stopped the radiant heat in the aprons for that short period of time, was able to feed the Modine units. It brought the temperature up within 15 minutes back into the apparatus. Instead of having to put another boiler system and do that whole setup, which was going to be about $175,000, it cost us $15,000 to do that setup. And those are the type of things that like we bring from CHA, and Alyssa and I, with each of these projects, the lessons learned and what we're going to do better for moving forward on the stations. And then finally, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. You know, through grants and through a lot of purchasing, fire departments buy equipment that hopefully when they build a new station, they can bring some of it. One of the things that we ensure on our group of it is that we make sure the electrical and mechanical connections for that equipment is accurate. Too many times they'll come in and they'll do a boilerplate hookup of what you're planning for your program, but they're not taking into consideration what a dryer rack requirements needs are, what your compressed air system is going to actually need for hookups. We make sure that we do a walkthrough through each of the drawings, through page by page with the department to make sure whatever equipment they're bringing in and whatever equipment they want to buy, we're providing the right hookups for everything on that. And that, you know, it's not going to be a change order moving forward. And then any specialty equipment, we know as you move forward, who would have thought back from 2018 till now, the course of events that have changed drastically from a pandemic for a fire department and first responders. Understanding that a lot of changes in policies have actually changed. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to just talk about some of the reduction in costs that we try to manage.
Yeah. So like Joe said, with the pandemic, escalation has gone up 41% since 2019. So we're starting to see the effects of that now, both with lead times, construction schedules, manpower shortages. So a couple of the tools that we've been managing now, knowing what we know now, we're looking at switch gears that are 13 months lead time, and a lot of the buildings we're doing are only 12 months of a project duration. So when you're having these lead times that outdo the duration of the project, we have to get creative. So a couple of the things that we're doing now on other projects is early packages, releasing that electrical or mechanical equipment before going out to bid. For this project, we recommend doing a Chapter 149, which is design, bid, build. We would go with a hard bid in hand and hire the low bidder. So that's what we would recommend for this project. We tend to see that CM at risk has a little bit of a premium on it. And for a project like this, where we can have the design fully vetted before going on the street with those documents, we recommend that procurement method. So with that, we want to go through the pre-qualification process with you all very tightly. We want to get criteria that shows the contractors have similar project experience, that they're financially healthy, that their references are good. So we'll put together that pre-qualification committee with your group and make sure that contractors are interested in this project, so that way we have competitive bidding. We work with a lot of great contractors in the Commonwealth. We're very familiar with those that do public safety, as well as designers that do public safety as well. So with the fire station experience that we have, again, we're familiar with the equipment that goes into the building. We're doing a lot of rooftop air units that we would want to release early on. Have the designer and the engineers look at lead times when we're building out the documents, making sure that it's equipment that we can get. So with that, we're trying to mitigate those cost impacts as we move forward. Again, community education, getting the community to know that we're building this building for the wants and the operations that you need, rather than a dream fire station building. We want to make sure that the community is aware of that. So we'll work with you with the communications of that too. With that being said, it's a long journey to yes. You start here with OPM selection, and we help you get a designer. So we'll help you the interview, we'll help get the criteria, and make sure that we're working with designers and engineers that are experienced in fire stations and that match with the vision that you're all looking for. We'll actually look again at that schematic design, your conceptual design, and look at the program needs that you have, the operations, and make sure that it fits you right now, as well as 50 years from now. So we'll revisit that. And again, at each stage, we're doing a cost estimate. So you're getting a snapshot in time of what that building is going to cost. We'll look at cost-effective details to either dial back the cost or come up with something that operationally works without having to cut program. So that part is really important, where we don't want to value engineer the whole project and you're left with nothing. We want to make sure that operationally this building is built for the future.
Question.
Yeah.
So if I understand your what you're saying, you recommend doing full design and getting bids for construction before going to town meeting?
Yes.
Ideally.
Interesting.
So, and the reason behind it, and I can just elaborate a little bit if you don't mind. Going in with an estimate, it can be sometimes a challenge, because I can tell you over the last 7 projects I've done, I've gone into town meeting with an estimate based on, an estimate's the best guess at that given time. When you go into a town meeting and you go in with an estimate and then you physically bid the project and you go in there and all of a sudden you need more money, going into any town and asking for money is difficult to start with. Going in there and asking for additional funds because it was underestimated appropriately, or the bids were volatile. We had, electrical, mechanical, and steel were like 41% higher than anticipated. Our estimating team figured 1.25 on escalation from the time conceptual was done to the time we actually went out to bid, and it went up 2% per month. How do you accommodate that at a town meeting or that explanation?
So in your scenario, we have to go to town meeting for the design money.
Right now you do?
Well, we have schematic design money, we don't have full design.
Right.
We have to go back for full design, and then we'd have to go to town meeting with bids in hand for construction, correct?
Correct. That's exactly right. So your schematic design will give you, schematic design is just before design development. So you'll have enough of the design and enough of the specifications to give us some good ballpark numbers associated with square footage of the overall building. What it's going to do for you, though, it's an estimate at that point when you're going to go for full design. That's the only downside to it. So I can tell you, you're going to negotiate with the designer through schematic. I'm going to ask, through that process, I'm going to ask what his costs are for a full design, so you know what those costs are going into it. I'm talking about construction costs. It's always better to have a bid in hand going to town meeting than it is an estimate, in my opinion.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and another example of that is Joe and I are working on a fire station in Bridgewater. We did an estimate a year and a half ago. We did an estimate now during DD, and it was almost $5 million more. So, and that's only a year and a half. So as we start to delve out that design, we're looking on ways to cut the building. We're looking at ways to put the outbuilding as an alternate. And we're doing everything we can to not have to cut program, but also at the same time, look for grants, look for additional money in the town that we can use from leftover projects or capital projects So we're trying to get creative with that, but also in mind having, at the end of the day, they want a new building. You also want a new building. We want to look at the program, the operations, and make sure that's what you get. And that's what we're here for, to develop that.
Go ahead.
That building you just mentioned, at $5 million in 1 year, what was the initial design?
Shock? Oh, no, well, the initial design, as far as what?
Well, what, $5 million based on what?
Just cost.
What's that percentage breakdown to?
It worked.
In 1 year?
17, it was 17 to 22.
17 to
So,
22%
yeah,
increase in 1 year?
Yes, a year and a half.
17 million, 22 million, or 17%?
No, 5 million equals 17%.
Right.
5 million, yeah.
So what we found was the estimate that was done a year and a half ago was pre-pandemic.
Right.
So what we said, when we took over the project, we inherited that portion of the drawings, and they were waiting for the Bridgewater Elementary School to be completed and find out what funds were available there to put into the fire station. So, which was a great idea. I mean, it gave them a little bit more luxury as far as what they're trying to do for their headquarters. But what we found was that their estimating team didn't take anticipation what the escalation was per month at that process going up. So when we finally did a takeoff based on a couple of fire stations that we're wrapping up right now that we bid previously, the costs were, and you know what, estimators are going to be conservative, and I'll tell you the reason behind it. It's simple that they when they give you an estimate, they'd rather be on the higher side. The bids come in lower, and everybody's happy, right? Isn't that how it normally is? So when they went through the pandemic, they were so shell shocked. They turned around and said, well, wait a minute, we got to add a little bit more onto these bids because the bids are coming in a lot higher at the 38%, 41% higher. So they're being more conservative. So what it does is it puts pressure on the designer and the department. Now they got to figure out how, they call it value engineering. It's not, it's cutting program. And that's one thing that we don't like to do. We'll look at other methods of construction, whether it's modular or for the apparatus and putting in some type of design bid bill for the head house and then incorporating that into the design to try to save money rather than cut scope out of your project. Okay?
And so we touched on a little bit about this, but again, we're going to go back to the program. We'll do a page turn with the department, make sure that the spaces are meeting your needs. And then we'll also go through the life cycle cost considerations. So we have a couple projects that we've worked on in the past where people are considering geothermal or solar. So those are analysis that we've done and are aware of what those cost impacts have to the project. As far as getting early packages and phasing and procurement, again, we really do recommend that design bid build. We've successfully done that on the past, again, with a bid in hand going to the town meeting so that the community is aware that these are real dollars, real estimates that we've compared to our full package of documents. And then with our community education and approval, we'll be at every public forum, every building committee meeting. We also help you prepare for planning board, conservation committee, and we understand the steps to get through all of those challenging meetings. And we work with you with communications. One thing that we've been doing recently is having weekly check-ins with our teams. So whether it's the owner, town manager, fire chief, make sure that on a weekly basis, we're checking in for 30 minutes, giving you an update on the progress, having you in those working group meetings so we can collaborate. And then at the end of the week, sending you a summary in the form of a weekly memo so that you're aware of what's going on. Some towns will choose to put that on a website. And then when we get into construction, we're looking at monthly reports where you're having budget updates, schedule updates, a narrative of what happened that month. And then furthermore, we have a full-time on-site rep that's with us during construction. So you have somebody on site every day. That person's your eyes and ears. They're monitoring quality, testing, schedule, budget, making sure that we're hitting all those milestones. So we're really excited to present that team to you and potentially work with you, but knowing that these are some of the challenges that we may face on the project and we're fully prepared and experienced in dealing with them.
And to close it up, the commitment to Lakeville and, you know, why CHA, we're the right choice, I can tell you right now. Alyssa and I, at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, we attend meetings. We're the team that you're going to see. You know, Alyssa alluded to the weekly meetings with the internal team. We meet with the designer outside of that with the team as well. And we do that for a couple of reasons, because we like to have candid conversations with the owner outside of the designer if there's some concerns or issues that they might have with anything. That way we can implement it and make sure that they're getting what they want at the end of the day. You've got one shot at this, and we want to make sure you get it right. And then at the end of the day, our in-house experts and specialty items that we have, it's not an expensive route to go that route. That's what we have in-house to offer as an OPM to make sure that the town of Lakeville gets what they want. And with that, we're looking forward to your questions. Thanks.
I'll begin. So you already touched on a lot of this, but I'll just read the question here. Based on recent projects, was the work finished on time and within budget? Second part is, what experience does your firm have in preventing design flaws, such as lack of storage, proper egress, a disorganized layout through completion?
So the first part of it, every building that Alyssa and I have worked on over the last 6 years, and I can tell you the 9 that I've done prior to her, we've been on time and under budget. I can tell you that much. Over the last couple of projects that we're working on currently right now, and we're closing them up over this fall, the biggest concern for delay was equipment switchgears. Switchgears they used to be 3 to 4 months to get, they're 6 to 8 months to get, and that affects overall schedule. I mean, that's the bottom line. So what we did creatively on those particular items, we're looking at early bid packages to try to order some of that key equipment early on so that we can stay within an 18-month schedule, a 16-month schedule, to ensure that we have the equipment ready to go when the building shell is up and ready to be fitted in. Storage layout is everything. So how that happens initially is sitting down with the original, the designers designing boxes, and they kind of put the boxes into a building, and they say, how does this look to you? And knowing, there's some strong designers that do fire stations, and I can tell you there's some weak ones, without hesitation. I've worked with both, and I can tell you those strong ones that have successful buildings, they communicate, and that communication is a matter of working with the OPM and the chief and his department to say, yeah, our operation is X, and this is the kind of space that we need. Being creative at how we resolve that. Having a mezzanine in the apparatus bay for storage. Well, they build that mezzanine, but they don't create an access to get to it. Having, will your department have pole at all?
I hope so.
You hope so? So believe it or not, we've had some departments, and I'm not going to mention the town, but they said, how about if we did a slide? Now, I said, I'm not going to town. I am not going to town meeting to present a brand new fire station, putting a slide into your fire station. Because it was one of those, they went to a state, festival where they showed wherever it was. I'm like, there's no way, and I'll tell you who it was, Dennis.
You have to say we when you go down.
So anyway, the pole is conventional, it's safe, and just like the layout of those spaces, having decon versus the showers versus where you discharge into the apparatus, having your dry storage for your ambulance, having your storage needs for your compressed air. Even the design of where your compressed air is next to the head house versus maybe on the other side of the apparatus where you're not up all night on. Even your fitness space within your space, where we did one design with a fire station, and the designer had the fitness room on the second floor. They had a training room just like this underneath it. Every time the guys were working out, it sounded like they were dropping lead onto the floor, and it made no sense. So we just by reworking some of those spaces, we were able to accommodate the fitness center downstairs in another location and created another space available for the firefighters on the second floor. But those are the type of things that we'll look at each of the facets of the building. Even, I can tell you, all firefighters aren't great drivers, right? Is that fair to say? Yeah. All right, so and I'm not trying to, it's just the nature of the beast, the size of your doors. I mean, because cost gets so concerned with a lot of things, they try to narrow doors, they try to save money. It doesn't say, you're building this for 50 years. Why would you make it more difficult for firefighters to do their job? They're already excited enough to get out of the building, and they're tired when they come back. Having the bollards in the right location, you're going to have a fuel station or a central lead fuel station?
We have a fuel station at the DBW.
I'll tell you what I've done on 7 of my fire stations. You're going to have an alternative fuel for your diesel, obviously. So You'll have whatever you're gonna do on your fire station, but you're gonna have hopefully a diesel generator. So what we did is we put a second port on that diesel generator, circulate and fuel. It runs once a week to circulate. So instead, what we did is we put a pump there, and it gave you an availability for fuel, for quick fuel up on it, and circulated the fuel in the generator. Those are things that, like, we thought of out of the box, and I did it successfully in Oak Bluffs, Onset. We're doing it in Dennis and Northbridge. So, and it's just a matter of going through the right process of zoning to make sure that we're putting the right pad there, the right capture location of where it's going to be. And it's just one of those are things that we think out of the box to make sure that things are right when it goes to any station. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did, thank you.
I have a question about risk. It's got two parts.
A slide for that.
What are the primary risk factors associated with the fire station as opposed to other projects? And the second part of it is, what trends have you observed recently with other fire station projects?
You want to take the
Sure.
first part? And I'll
Yeah,
jump in.
so we have a risk register that we do early in the project. And we look at things like utility coordination, which we're having issues with National Grid and Eversource, these big companies trying to get gas or electricity to our sites. So we're looking at early coordination when it comes to those items. So that's something that from day one, we're putting on the risk register, making sure that the site can accommodate where the gas line is going to come in, where the conduits are going to come in, and making sure that we have the regulations that we're building into the actual design. So I would say that would answer the first question.
So
In
I
terms
can
of,
jump on the second one.
yeah.
So some of the risks that we're going to run into, and I try to explain this to every town that's going to be building a fire station. The biggest risk that you have right now is general contractor and fire subcontractor fear. And what does that mean? That means that back in 2018 and 19, they were able to look at your drawings and say, all right, they want it done in 18 months. It's going to take me 10 guys, $2 million to do my portion of it, put their numbers together, submit the bid. And then when they get the bid awarded to them, they go to buy the product, and guess what happened? Numbers are double. So now they're already in the hole trying to figure out how they're going to do it. And you put another caveat on it where I don't know where all the workers went after the pandemic, but there's nobody out there doing work anymore. Where electricians had 16 guys on staff, they got 9. So now what they're doing is they're looking at it and saying, to finish it in 18 months, I got to pay time and a half for each of these. So your costs are getting driven up. So what we try to do on part of that risk is educate the subcontractors and the general contractors of what design we're doing, and really reach out to those contractors that are successful at managing it. And I find it difficult sometimes when a fire subcontractor gives you the number and then everything's a change order. Well, what do we pay the $19 million for? What did we buy? So what we try to do is we de-scope it before the general contractor and the subcontractor actually award actually give the bid, because we want to make sure we understand what they're bidding and what they're supplying is the same thing. And then the final risk is that just getting the right staff, and what I mean by that is the right designer, the right general contractor, and the right file subcontractor to bid your project. Because there's ones that are out there that are really good, and we do an extensive outreach to those groups to make sure that they know your project's coming and they're excited about it, and you get a good bidding pool from it.
Quick follow-up on the early release of materials. Is that something that you have the town contract out to directly to buy this equipment? Yes. And then you supply it to the contractor?
That's correct.
Okay.
So what we end up, and just to elaborate a little bit, so what we do is we identify things that within the specifications, you got to do 3 or equals with the procurement. But I speak to Deb Anderson, I feel like every other week, and she gives us certain criteria that we can put within the specifications that allows us, because of the whole cost of doing construction right now, to be able to early release some of the packages. But we work closely with the engineers and the architect to make sure that whatever their intent design is the product that we're actually putting in to be able to build it. You're gonna have a hard question. Where's a hard one?
What strategies do you utilize to keep your project on schedule at minimal cost? And secondly, how would you describe your approach to project management?
You want to start and I'll finish, or you want me to start?
Yeah,
I'll start and then you can
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about the project.
Might-
So our process to project management is to be, communications probably 90% of it. So initially, to keep a project on schedule, we ask for a 3-week, first of all, we ask for a master schedule, all right? We get the master schedule. Every week, we ask for a 3-week look ahead. And what that does is it gives us a baseline to look at their baseline schedule to see if the tasks that they're saying in those 3 weeks are meeting their baseline schedule. In addition to that, we get a schedule update every month along with the requisition. And what that does for us is it tells me if anything, items are slide. So every schedule, I call it fluff factor. They have a little bit of fluff within that schedule. And what they end up doing is they eat that up quite a bit if they're not managing the subcontractors and the work appropriately. One of the things that I found with a lot of general contractors is cash flow problem. I can see a cash flow problem happening instantly when I see a scope of work that's scheduled to be done in 3 weeks and the delivery for whatever that product isn't showing up. And what we do as a project management group, we make calls directly to that file sub supplier to say, what's the hold on? So if we're staying on top of them, they turn around and say, well, the general contractor owes me money, I'm not shipping it till then. That sends a whole different message on how we manage the overall project. In addition to that, we, as Alyssa had indicated, we do a purchase and delivery schedule. And that purchase and delivery schedule is simple. It's part of the specifications. You give us a purchase and delivery of every product on your submittal process that you're buying and when we're expecting delivery on that. And we track that on a weekly basis in the job meeting. In addition to that, your requisition tells you everything. It's percentage of complete as they go forward. If they're billing 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, and you're 50% through the project, there's an issue. Obviously, schedule's gonna be blown. So we manage that all the way through each of the months as we move forward with that. So it's not just a one-step process. And then one of the things that we try to do, there's always gonna be challenges with every project. There may be a detail with the design that's, unforeseen conditions happen and you got to work through it. We try to come up with as they come up with a problem, before we come back to the town with the issue, we try to have a solution involved in it to try to minimize the costs associated with any change that we do, or construction. Recently we did a project and we found we had a $600,000 contingency. We had $479,000 on suitable material that was on site. We did borings, test pits. What we didn't realize is that the town used it as a dumping site for all their tailings, and they buried it 20 feet and no one said anything prior to that. So we were a solution was, we excavated all of that material, stockpiled it, we screened it all, got all the tailings out of it that shouldn't be there, had the material tested, we can use it to backfill. So we saved the town $375,000 off of $470,000 because we would have had to import that material. We had to import a little bit of it, but it was a significant saving, other than removing it all off-site and bringing in new material. So those are the type of solutions that we work through. And our approach is, we're hands-on. Literally, we visit the site 1 and 2 times a week. Alyssa and I typically show up at 7 before a 9 or 10 o'clock meeting, walk the site, we're already geared up to go into a meeting, ready to go and figure it out. We need the contractor to be successful, and people look at me and it's like, you want them to make money, what do you mean? Because when a general contractor is doing their job, doing it well and making money, you get a great project, I can tell you that much. As long as we get a successful, low cost associated with it. That's what it comes down to.
Tell us about how you prefer to handle communications with municipal clients, your routine communications with municipal clients, and what strategies you've implemented to ensure successful transfer of information to committee members during a project.
You got a slide for
I got a slide
that?
for that too. So we do a RACI chart, and that basically stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And this lists all the phases for the project, all the way from schematic to closeout. And we have all the parties on there. We have contractor, designer, town manager, building commissioner, fire chief, whoever is going to be either a decision maker, an approver, or someone that simply needs to be informed of a process or a decision or a change order or an invoice. We found that when doing this early on in a project, it clears all that confusion of the communication flow. So if someone needs to be informed of a decision or someone needs to be the final signature on a document, we have that all planned out from the very beginning. And then I mentioned that we do the monthly reports. We use Raken. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It's a daily reporting tool that when our on-site rep is on-site every day, full-time, they're putting in the weather, the construction activities, photos, visitors. They're verifying material, making sure it meets specifications. They're taking pictures of quality. I had a situation a couple weeks ago where the architect saw how the brick was being laid out. They maybe had 1 or 2 courses done. He called up our on-site rep and said, "What's going on there? That tolerance looks off. Can you send me a few more pictures? Can you go look at it again?" He had the owner of the masonry company on site the next day, walking the site to make sure that the quality was good.
So explain the Raken portion of it. So it's an app base, and actually that Raken can be sent, as soon as he hits save, it can be dispersed to whoever you want it to go to for information purposes.
Yeah, and we have projects that it goes to the whole committee. They want to see that on a weekly basis in one formatted PDF that everyone can see exactly what's going on. So you can see the manpower that's being spent, you can see the progress on a daily basis. So that's something that we're really proud of, that we've initiated in the past year, because it gives someone, whoever wants to be informed about the project, a bird's eye view of what's going on. So.
That answer your question at all?
I have the next question. So how do you approach a project where the site location has not yet been determined, and what tools do you use to identify relevant considerations and develop a final recommendation?
So that's a great question. You know, one of the most difficult challenges with finding a station, in town of Bourne, they're doing a station 2, and they're split between the bridge. So they were looking to build a second fire station on the other side of the bridge, and they looked at every town-owned parcel, because that's an easy one, right? But they also were challenged with looking at other parcels that, to meet their response times from point A to point B. They have 3 stations. They were looking to build this 3rd one to try to cut the response time, because if the bridge goes down, they only got 1. They'd have to have assisted help on that lower section from Falmouth. So one of the challenges that they had is that everybody has opinion where it should go. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things. And sitting through a group, it comes down to, you know, economics on cost, location, response time, and then environmental conditions. I'm doing a station, we're just wrapping up a station where they had a 6-acre parcel, and you think that's perfect size for a station. What would happen is 2/3 of it had wetland delineation on it, so they could only build on the upper right corner. What that did is it affected the overall setbacks where variance was needed, so it was gonna impact how long it was gonna take to get all of those approvals. In addition to that, the parking, the flow, the apparatus location, the discharge onto the roadway, all get affected by that. So what we do internally is we evaluate each of those locations, and you've done, whoever did it, you know, did their due diligence, but I don't think it's enough. I think we need to, you know, look at it a little closer to make sure that that's the right fit and that's the right location on it. And the final part of it is to work closely with the town manager and administrator to make sure that it makes sense, because, you know, I can't tell you how many town meetings have their own opinion about where it should go and how it should be. And one of the things that we try to do is that, you know, transparency is everything, and bringing that information through public forums always helps to gain that support from the town to whatever location you decide on. So I think there's a multitude of things that we look at, and then your due diligence on site. Bridgewater is a great example. Your site location, doing your test bits and borings early, so you know your gradation of the soils, of what your bearing capacity is and where the location of that building should go. Finding contaminants in Carver, when we were digging up for the fire station, we did test bits, borings, everything, found nothing. We go to dig in one location, we found a buried Ford pickup truck. It was 1946. It was in a spot where if we did borings every 6 feet, it was between the 2 6-foot borings. And then what we found is there was a old pool chemical spot, and they had an empty tank, thank God, but it was a tank right behind the pickup truck. I swear to God, we were looking for bodies, so that was my worried part of it. But it's just, those are the type of things that we try to do as we evaluate it, so.
Well, I know we're getting just about right there. We have time for one more question, and then we'd like to have you ask us a question. So, I think Mike?
Yeah. Can you tell us about a specific municipal project challenge that you've had and that you faced, and tell us how you addressed it?
Just one?
Whatever
Oh,
pops in.
Let me think of. So I think similar to what you were saying about the site location, we talk a lot about the not in my backyard. Everybody represents, supports first responders. They call you when they need you, and they think highly of you. And a lot of people will support the building of a fire station, but once they find out it's next to their property or it's on their street, the tune changes a little bit. So what we work through is getting neighbor feedback, resident abutting feedback, and working on solutions for that are cost effective for the project, but that may appease the neighborhood. So that's something proactively that we'll go and meet them face to face. We'll walk the site with them. We'll make sure that they understand the program that we're putting in is what we need for the town and the response times. So things like you said, the response times are very important for where that fire station is going to go to begin with. But we really work hard on making sure that the planning board also understands the site review. We're always writing narratives and responses and meetings and making sure that people understand the project that we're trying to put out there. We'll follow that order of conditions very closely, making sure that we have options. So I think that's one thing when we look at what we're dealing with on a fire station in terms of getting approvals and holding that schedule as well. So that we can get out to bid and get this project built. So those are just a couple of the...
Getting out of the ground is probably the biggest challenge with any project. Yeah. Once you're out of the ground with the foundations, a lot of your unknowns are out of the way. Yeah. You're still going to run into design challenges. And we had, down in, I did Oak Bluffs Fire Station, and they literally they had $8 million to build a fire station, and they had 4 apparatus bays. With a head out. So we looked at modular construction, and I kind of ruined the program for the state, and I'll tell you why. Modular construction back in 2015, you were able to secure a modular building, and you could actually hire a general contractor for a structural steel modular building to fit it out. What it did is AG's office allowed us to do that, and what they found out is that it omitted the fire subcontractors. He could hire whatever subcontractors he wanted to fit it out. So we were successful on that. We ended up building that fire station for $7 million. We saved $2 million by doing that. They were able to get the size of the building that they had, and it was modular construction. There were some challenges with it because you get a steel metal building. How do you make sure that your head house fits onto that and everything is coordinated on the inside? So there's some challenges that way. But what we've learned out of that, and when I did the same building, identical same building for the West Tisbury at the airport because they needed an off building. So we did that same building, and it cost them the same amount of money. Right after that, they stopped. The AG's office said, time out. All the fire subcontractors don't think it's meeting the procurement. We're going to change that. So what they've done now is we can still buy a modular building. What we do is we do an early package. Figure out, let's say your apparatus and your head house is to the building you can afford. We'll buy the apparatus bay out of steel. We'll make, a brick facade on the bottom to protect it. And then we do a fit out with the designer to make sure that the building size appropriate meets your needs and all the doors and the coordination ahead of time. And it can sometimes save you money that way. But the biggest thing is getting out of the ground. Northbridge, we hit a bunch of ledge. We ended up using that ledge. It cost us money to remove, but we were able to crush it and use the material on site. So those are the type of challenges that we've come across.
All right.
Questions for you now?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Timelines. When are you?
Knew that was coming. When we're done here, on our agenda, we'll be talking about, I'm going to ask this committee during the discussion to make a recommendation and vote to send that recommendation to the select board. The select board meets Monday evening. So if the recommendation comes out of here tonight, it will be on the agenda for Monday night. And
Great.
Asking for the vote from the select board to support the recommendation.
And so at that point, designers, your first step, shortly thereafter?
Yeah, that'll be first. As I mentioned earlier, we have enough money, we believe, for schematic design.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah, I would hope you'd at least have that, because you're not going to get real, conceptual doesn't give you enough cost. It doesn't give you enough information for cost. And then, are you looking to go to Springtown meeting
It all depends on when we get the designer in and when we have a product to provide.
It's a year, so just to be clear, it's typically a year from the time you get the designer onto a full set of drawings. I've had it successfully done in 9 to 10 months, but you're pushing the
So
envelope.
as I stated, we're gonna have to go back to town meeting
For more money,
for design
yeah.
money, because we have no money for schematic design.
Right. But I'm just saying in general, like your timeline at schematic, so your schematic typically should take you 4 months, 3.5 months, 4 months. Any, on the building department, on obviously the affidavit construction, you'll be deeply involved and want to see all of the testing reports and all of that, right?
Correct.
Tom Gasunis, you know him, he works for us, so he's great. He's been instrumental on making sure that, you know, we understand all of the requirements that you guys require and what we need to do for OPM work as well.
Great, thank you.
All right. All right, that's all we got. We're excited. I mean, the bottom line is, Alyssa and I have just finishing up the projects. This project fits right in our wheelhouse. I live locally in Carver. I'm literally 15 minutes from here, and I'm very excited to hopefully have the opportunity of working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for coming out.
Yeah. Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, good to see you. You know, when they said you came over, like, I was dying.
Nice meeting you.
Everything going well?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Richard finally retired.
I know, yeah.
He's, last time I talked to him was Tuesday, or he was Greece.
Yeah,
I was the last day this time, for sure. And then he went to Mexico the week after.
So this is a firm that Davis was absorbed by, sold to CHA. And the principal of Davis is Richard Marks, so we worked with him.
I know Richard,
So we did a few projects in Lakeville. We did, I want to say, 3 schools and the library.
I think I remember from the library.
You have a member for the library?
No, I think I remember
Oh, you're right.
at that time when the
So
library was.
the library was, this project was a challenge, actually. They did a good job.
Oh, I appreciate that, thank you.
Bet you didn't have electronic bidding back then.
If there's any information that we didn't give you, or you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy your night.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good luck.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We'll get it done.
All right, I'm going to just jump agenda item real quick. Everybody have a chance to review the minutes of May 10th?
Yes.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Good. I know we haven't scheduled our next meeting, but we third Wednesday of the month, right? Is that who we would be? That's July.
July. This week, all right, you want to do that?
Anybody have any conflicts, third week in July? I mean,
The 19th?
19th?
is that when it is?
Yeah.
I don't have any.
No, I'm good.
I mean, would we need to meet sooner?
So we got, it's gonna take a little while to get the contract. Assuming that we make a decision tonight and the board approves, it's gonna take a little while to get the contract signed and sent and all that stuff, so.
All right, so it would be the 19th, correct? 6:30? We're in?
Yep.
All right.
Here, police station, to determine.
I would hope it was the police station, but if it's not, we'll find, Christina will let us know what's available. 6:30. Okay, so let's go back to number 3, discuss interview results, and then we have a possible vote to approve our owner project manager recommendations to select board. I'm gonna let you guys start. I know I was trying to take notes, you know, going through listening. I certainly felt that there were 3 very distinct differences. And, you know, especially with some of the content triggers I was looking for. I know national heritage was mentioned, you know, at the start, but I didn't, you know, hear it for the other, and I know that that's a concern, you know, for our community, but I want to hear what the rest of the committee felt, and if, you know.
So, can I start?
Yes, please.
I did come into this with a, you know, based on our voting of our, from their proposals, CHA was my number 1 choice, but that was with no prior knowledge, just going with proposal only.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with Pomeroy. I do believe that the town had a very good relationship with them in the past, which I think should be kept. That's an important thing, because you don't always get that option to have a full-scale interview with them 5 years ago, you know, and it worked out well. So that's all I have to say. Let somebody else speak.
Can I ask Ari a question? How would the potential change in what CHA was proposing on what we do for getting town vote affect?
It's a novel idea, but it actually makes a lot of sense in the current environment. Basically, the main difference is that we'd have to go back to town meeting one more time than we would expect.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go back for full design money, and then go back again with bids in hand to award the contract. But the advantage of that is in such a volatile environment, you're gonna come back with solid, really solid number for construction.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of credit for coming forward with that idea. I think it's definitely worth considering.
I can tell you firsthand that the last 18, 24 months of bidding work, major work around Boston.
It's crazy.
The engineers' estimates come in, you know, 2/3 to 3/4 of what the low bid cost is. So there's still a tremendous amount of volatility out there and unknowns in the market. And anything you can do to reduce unknowns for a contractor is going to save the money, because unknowns are risk and they add money for risk.
Yeah. So I'm going to build on that question.
I had 2 follow-up questions, I guess. So the first follow-up question is there a risk in getting, I mean, I guess there is a sort of a risk in getting to having the full design done, but then not getting approval because...
Yeah, you're going to be out a couple $1 million.
Right, so then that was, yeah. But I guess the follow-up question that I had was, could we encourage or ask another OPM to do that if that's the route we thought was the safest?
Yeah, you certainly could. Yeah, I think that's a sort of strategic approach that you know, the select board would have to sign on to.
Okay.
I want to, was it 2 follow-ups, Kenny?
Yeah.
So I want to build on something that Mike said that you asked. It disappointed me that Pomeroy didn't provide any discussion of this, but our most recent experience with Pomeroy was actually the DPW building. And they came in with a cost estimate that was so wildly high that, that we ended up abandoning the project and went a different route to get it done. And there were clearly things that could have been done, determined after the fact, with the way, with through the process being built now, that would have saved significant costs on that project. And there was just no interest in going there. And I was very disappointed by that interaction, the way that went down. And I know there's a history of Pomeroy with the police station, and I appreciate that and I value that. But that is a concern that's in my head, and it concerns me. I mean, Taylor was involved in it. It concerns me that there was no reference to that or no discussion of that whatsoever.
I don't think that Pomeroy really understood the issue there. We had 2 professional estimators estimate a schematic design on the DPW building, and with the volatility in the bidding environment, that's what they're going to protect themselves. So we got a professional estimator to provide an estimate. Number came back high. We went out to a second estimator. Right? Not so sure that that would be Pomeroy's fault.
Well, there were no efforts to revise the design to save some money either. That's my.
Respectfully disagree. I don't think they were asked to.
Well, we definitely asked them to.
Right, so we know that there's a lot of, I guess, challenges that, we have to face. Obviously, cost factors in supply availability. And I was kind of tuned into, some of the creativity on how to meet those demands. And because you don't want to be starting a project and then, not have any of the materials that you would need to move the project along. So obviously, all three have identified that that is a concern. So that I was happy to hear that was a big priority for them. But I did appreciate the fact that there were, I think it was Pomeroy and CHA that talked specifically about, what was it, the hot, warm, and cold, the safety, specifically of the safety of our firefighters when they come back to the...
mentioned that too, I thought.
Yeah.
I think colleagues said that too.
Yeah, I've heard it from all three presented, and that's something that that's unique to fire stations, so not everybody understands that. I guess the question that I'm leaning on the expertise in the room on is my impression is that sometimes the size and capacity of the operation may yield savings down the road on a project, and is that more valuable to the smaller operation that's be able to maybe have a more custom approach to our operation, and that, so I'm leaning on our people here to say, like, where's the biggest bang for our buck? The capacity of a firm to run this operation in a way that's going to save us money in the overall project, or are we going to get more bang for our buck from somebody that's smaller and more aware of our particular needs? And that's, I wanted to throw that out to the members at large for that.
Right.
I think it's about the details, really, and to me, it's, just from seeing, both Pomeroy and, all of them actually, just the smaller companies, it seems like they're just more detail focused, and I think that's where you see it.
Yeah.
You have larger companies that can put a ton of people on it, but where are they communicating? Are they focusing in on the problems? Are they talking? So it seems smaller operation might be a better situation for that.
So coming to Lakeville, and hearing our employees, our firefighters, be so embarrassed about the building they were working out of that they warned me before I accepted the job was just really struck me. And so from the day I started, I've been watching buildings and knew that it was my job to advocate for a new space. And I know a little bit about all these companies just from watching all these operations. Sorry, it's late. And connecting some of the things that they said, where they're probably aware of the fact that I know what projects they've worked on and the problems that they've had, and they were speaking to me through trying to get out in front of some of the things I've seen. Like, it's very difficult for me to speak outside the scope of what we've heard tonight, but there's an awareness that I can't deny. And in my heart of hearts, I think there's two firms there that we can't go wrong with. And that's what brings me back to my previous point about what are the advantages of going large? Is it, and I don't want to mention cost because it's not something we're considering right now. So maybe I should mention value. Where are we going to maximize our value as far as the overall project? And value for me is $1 spent on infrastructure, $1 spent on some kind of a change order or something like that is $1 taken away from a mission-specific building. Something that's built for Lakeville's mission. Whether it's Colliers or whether it's Pomeroy, who's going to provide that to us? Maximum value. And that's my without being nasty about or bringing up something, I don't want to disparage CHA, but I just know I know too much, and that's why I lean on these other two firms a little. I hold them in higher regard. to be transparent. So I kind of like, I'm really seeking, you know, somebody to make up my mind for me, because I'm all about the value and how we spend our money and getting maximum, the best fire station we can. Mike, do you have any, I know you've talked about the value of bigger versus smaller. I know you've applied that to other projects outside the fire station, so
I mean, listening to the discussions here tonight, and, you know, that risk is really important to me, and a project manager is about managing risk. And when I listen to the three firms talk about risk and answer that question, Pomeroy didn't really, it almost seemed like he didn't understand what risk was about. He was talking about specifics at the station. You know, risk is time, money, and decision-making. And I thought out of the three of them, CHA had much better answers about how to manage risk. And I think that's, you know, hopefully we're gonna hire a design firm to design all the widgets and things that go in the building. But this firm here, we're hiring to manage our risk. You know,
if being familiar with the CHA project, the question becomes, and you guys would know better than I would, how a building comes to construction, how it's accepted when I'm walking through and noting code violations like access road width and things like that. How does a building that's less than a year old get built with some fundamental flaws? And is that on the architect? Is that on the town? Is that, who bears the responsibility there?
Which building are you talking about?
Maynard.
Maynard, okay.
Yeah, it was a building that was way too big for the parcel of land, and they try to shove it in there.
Do we know if that team, do you know what team worked on?
CHA was the project manager.
Which team in CHA? Okay. Curious what they have on their list.
it's the designer's job to make sure he's complying with the code. I mean,
Well,
obviously, if you get a sharp OPM, he's gonna pick up on that stuff.
In the
but
building
it's-
department, yeah.
It falls on a lot of different people though, because the building department's responsible for it, and the contractor, if they are aware of the situation, is also responsible for it as
And
well.
there's still
So,
code inspections that go
Yeah.
through the whole process, so it sounds like.
It doesn't
there's enough room
fall
for blame
squarely on
everywhere.
anyone.
If you have violations to finish, then you can start with your OPM, your architect, your
Yeah.
designer, right up to your code enforcement,
Right.
you know, inspections.
They do list that here. They list Maynard right there, I see it. Yeah.
So, I mean, we're talking about an apparatus ramp that requires a three-point turn in the middle of the street and then a left up a ramp and to get into the stalls. Like, holy moly. In my perfect world, I've got somebody standing by that has my back to hit the alarm button to warn me that this isn't making sense. We need to blow this up and start over again. And because it's a 40-year building, like you wouldn't want to accept something like that, or how did that get so far? And in my heart of hearts, I would love to have somebody that would push me and get in my face and tell me that I'm doing something bad. And that's what I would hope an OPM would do for me.
You want somebody that is there, and I don't want to say handhold, but in some cases, you know, we might not be the experts in every,
Exactly.
you know, piece of this building project. So we need somebody that's going to be there, but, you know, be fair and rational and not take advantage of that, you know, vulnerability that we might have there.
So, I'm sorry.
You know, and then I was going to say that we also want somebody that is going to listen to and understand the needs of our community, because we live here, we know our community, we know what our, you know, residents, you know, are all about with the fire station. I mean, that's one piece of it. It's not the end all, but we know that we have a need, or we wouldn't be sitting here as committee members at this meeting interviewing, you know, OPM. So we know we have the need, but we want somebody that's going to be able to challenge us, but at the same time, listen to us, challenge them.
Yep.
So, that's consideration. So
outside of that one disqualifying thing that in my head, like I think somebody should have came to, you know, I'm kind of deferring for some advice. I'm looking for somebody to help me pick between the big company and the small company, and maybe share their expertise as to why we should go one way or another. And I would kind of get behind them and support their expertise and with their recommendation to me.
So one thing I noticed about Collier's presentation was that they said that they were the public safety department, but all of their comments and all of their, everything that they talked about were schools and hospitals and all of this other stuff. And it's like, guys, like, we know what project we're talking about here. Why are we focusing on schools and libraries when we're all here to talk about a firehouse?
Yeah, I
And
even
it
noticed
didn't really
that.
make
I
sense to
yeah,
me
yeah.
when, like, we're all here for a firehouse, but they barely talked about firehouse experience, and it just didn't seem to make sense to me. And I felt that way about their proposal too, when I
They're
read
a little
through
thin
it.
on just public safety building in general, you know.
Yeah, but every example they gave, everything that they talked about always related to some other building type that's not relevant to this conversation.
Hospital or
Yeah,
school.
I totally
It just,
agree.
it didn't make sense.
I actually noted that.
Yeah,
I said
and
they seem to have no idea what our project is or where.
Yeah, so-
Even to the point of where, you know, he thought we already just, you know, had a dedicated spot that we wanted. I mean, he seemed to know nothing about
Well,
that.
yeah, okay.
And I'll be honest, I liked Collier in my chart. They came in second in my choice, but after hearing it, I kind of tucked them to the bottom, to be honest with you. I didn't think his presentation, it didn't impress me.
I felt the same way.
My two were CHA. I was unaware that you have some experience with them, but they seem to have a lot of.
I don't have a good grasp of what happened in Onset, but Onset also went sideways. And that was another CHA project, where I think they ran out of money and the station sits now occupied, half finished. So,
That may or may not be the fault of the POP.
no, I don't know.
Yes, unfortunately, we don't have enough information to make
Exactly.
those
That one I
decisions.
don't understand.
I have to say, based on what they had an answer for every question we had. Well, we didn't ask the last one, but.
Sorry about
They had an answer for every question. They seem to have a lot of tools for, you know, how do you do risk management? Oh, we have an app for that. Oh, I mean, they seem to be right on point with everything. I really liked them, I did, and then I thought Pomeroy did a great job in his presentation. He already has a relationship with the town, and we know where his building is. He's literally right down the road. I drive by it all the time. We can go knock on his door if there's a problem. You know, but Collier didn't impress me at all, and he was originally my second favorite pick, but.
Go ahead, Ari.
So, a couple things. First of all, I just looked through their CHA's proposal. So, onset isn't mentioned anywhere. So there's no mention of onset among the staff that would be assigned to us. Maynard is mentioned for the project executive who wasn't here tonight. The other ones were apparently not involved in Maynard, or if they were, they didn't put them on this list of things here. So that's not for what that's worth, you know. I thought Collier's presentation was very good. I thought I was especially impressed by their discussion about advocacy for a project and what they do for that. Some things that they said I thought were really useful and interesting. The idea of a Facebook meetup, you know, with an information session, I mean, that showed good dedication in my mind. I didn't, unlike you, Larry, I didn't take too much negative away from him not knowing the project, that the place, that the site had been selected, because I think by looking at, if you look at what happened at town meeting, if you look at the feasibility study, you probably normally come to the conclusion that, yeah, the site's been selected. Because the feasibility study pretty much says the preferable site is this.
Yes, site three.
First site is this. So I can't give a mulligan on that one.
Okay.
But I hear what you're saying. I think if I were them, maybe I would have watched a board meeting or two recently, and guess that's what's been going on around here. You know, I conveyed my concerns about with Pomeroy. Of course, I'll work with whoever we end up selecting to work with. I think all three of them are viable, good firms. I did think that Collier's and CHA's presentations were much better presentations than Pomeroy's presentation. Pomeroy didn't really have much up there. They weren't really telling us much. They had kind of a list. They just running through their list and just kind of droning through. And, you know, that's salesmanship more than anything else. But I thought Colliers and CHA did a better job of salesmanship than Pomeroy did. I'm done.
CHA to this building, or was it just this gentleman working at another?
Daedalus did.
Say again?
Daedalus did, which, you know, Daedalus was a firm owned by a guy, Richard Marks.
I think I bought by CHA?
They got bought, it was basically his, Richard Marks' retirement nest egg. When he retired, he sold his firm to CHA. Yeah.
And your relationship with him in the past was good?
So Joe, I worked with Richard a lot. Richard, of course, out of the picture entirely. I worked with him on a school project in New Bedford and on the public safety facility we built in New Bedford. And they were terrific. I mean, if Dalis was here, it was Richard Marks, I'd be, I'd be banging my fist on the table because I think they were great. But, Joe was, kind of second fiddle. He wasn't the lead in the relationship that I had with him. He was around, he was working on project management stuff a lot. He did a good job keeping both projects on task. He worked on the school project and on the public safety project. And kept them kind of moving and going. I think Richard Marks was kind of the suit, kind of the guy who would be the one who would talk to the mayor, glad-handed counselors and stuff like that. But Joe did a fine job.
It's, I don't know, I keep on waiting for someone to be bold and advocate for a specific bidder.
Anytime now, I will.
What's that?
I'll step in.
I just really didn't want to provide too much influence before everybody had a chance to say stuff. There's no doubt in my mind all three of these firms can, advocate for the town.
Yeah.
They're all going to do a good job. I can really only speak to my experience with Pomeroy and the police station. Worked with them for over 3 years. Never had to, make a second phone call. Never had to, send out a second email. Never felt like we weren't being taken care of. So, from me, I really think Pomeroy knows the town of Lakeville. They're close by. They know our public utilities. They know our infrastructure. I worked with them closely through Natural Heritage and the Turtle program. They concentrate on public safety. I think that you're going to find people, designers that are selective, general contractors that are selective, that really track OPM like this. This is going to be the biggest decision we make through this project. Get somebody that can advocate at town meeting, get somebody that can communicate with this group, deal with the designer and deal with the general contractor. So I know where I stand with it. I trust Pomeroy, I have a good relationship with them, and I think they'll do a real good job for the town.
May I go? I'd like to second some of Nate's same suggestions, and I do believe that they're my first choice. I don't discredit them because of their display or their presentation. They did say they're a 10-person company. They're not going to have a lot of buzzers and whistles in their display. It wasn't. It was just basically 3 slides or 6 slides. But the smaller company, I think, might be. They might have a better grip on this town because for what we are, and they are local. So.
If I walked out of here with Pomeroy as a recommendation, I'm not going to be unhappy or lose any sleep over it or be worried about anything. But selling this project is going to be a big nut to crack. And so then maybe the question becomes who's most likely to get this project off the ground versus preventing us from hurting ourselves with a bad project. Who's going to help me market this? Because that's what's going to stress me.
True.
And that's direction we also provide to our OPM. That this is where, we need, the support. And, what is a plan for that type of execution?
So how much of the marketing of the police station was Pomeroy and how much of it was Ryan Maltese and that crew, the brain trust of the police department?
Ryan certainly had involvement, and you know how he is with technology. Does a fantastic job. Most of it was Pomeroy. Developed programming, did displays and presented at various different boards and committees. I got to be honest with you, Chief. You did a bang-up job on your presentation. So I think you really did a nice job putting together PowerPoints. So feel like we could sell it.
Yeah.
I think it's a good project. I think most of the community understands that.
I can't take full credit. There was other people in the room that kept me out of trouble. So, all right, I don't have, I'm not the chair, I'm one person here. But I'm comfortable with 2 of the 3 of the people. And and any one of these is fine for us, like Nate said. But it seems like we're leaning a little bit towards Pomeroy, but I'm very concerned that I'm very afraid now I'm afraid of their ability to estimate the project properly, because, I know Frank, I talked to Frank, and I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to have to form a support group with them for failed projects. And, I don't want to drag this out if we're going to end up, and if this is a foregone conclusion, and this is what we're going to end up at, but, yeah, I'm looking for a strong leader to.
I mean, I'm thinking the other way. I mean, I think just for the answers tonight, CHA have better creative solutions about pre-purchase of equipment and trying to, dealing with what's really going on in the market right now.
I agree. I was really impressed by the couple of innovative ideas they had. The concept of how to go about town meeting was out of the box and different than anybody else was suggesting. The pre-ordering of material, something that we've done before for very small projects, but makes is a really interesting idea that could probably save the town a fair amount of money.
That has to be managed though too.
Right. So
There's another scale that again, it's outside of what we accomplished tonight. It's called the Happy Fire Chief Scale, and the
HFC.
Some of the feedback I got about CHA was negative from the fire chiefs that dealt with them too. So that's kind of something I didn't want to throw some fire chiefs under the bus, but if I have, if it's tough for me to support them when some chiefs are telling me that they had to work really, really hard in these projects because they felt like they were kind of hung out to dry a little bit.
So, from my professional experience, a good OPM makes an enormous difference in benefiting the project, and a mediocre OPM makes it extremely difficult for everybody involved. So I don't, not to say one over the other, but I think if you've heard not so great experiences from other people on a mediocre OPM, to me, that means it's literally more work for everybody else involved in the project, because if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, somebody else has to pick up that slack, because it's got to get done by somebody, or it falls through the cracks. So that's a concern, in my opinion, that it's hard to look away from, I think.
I personally wouldn't want to delay this further. I know that I'd like to see a general consensus about, amongst the group and a unanimous, decision. I could find myself voting for Colliers or Pomeroy. So I don't know if we want to delay the vote tonight to check references or just go forward with one of those.
We'll make it contingent on references.
So, to your point though, I don't see the harm in ranking. So if our first rank applicant is, the references don't check out, then maybe we can save time with the fallback.
I think you'd have to come back to
We'd have to come back for the vote.
Yeah.
Would it be just 48 hours notice?
We would only need 48-hour notice. That's,
Okay.
We wouldn't make it for
to
the Monday
post a
board.
voting.
We'll make it for the Monday board meeting.
Yeah, but you won't get it to the select board by Monday.
No, and then we'd have to wait till the July 10th,
Yeah.
unless we call an emergency meeting. Okay, no, I know it's not an emergency, but.
The work of this committee is on the critical path right now.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
Does anybody have someone they want to eliminate from the pool, or we can narrow it to 2 and move on?
Yeah, I don't think Collier measured to the other 2.
Yeah, I didn't like Collier at all, so.
I agree.
Same, yeah.
Okay, all right,
So
so now we're down
CHA
to
and Pomeroy.
Pomeroy and CHA.
You might get home tonight.
Yeah, well, you know,
Well, this is a, like you said, an extremely
Yeah, it is.
important decision that we're making. And I know that we have done our homework, going through and selecting the top 3 that we felt. They were here, they gave out their presentation. I think that we've got some great discussion going on. We've all seen some, you know, different things, and, you know, through this interview process.
Here's the quandary I'm in right now at this moment. I honestly thought that CHA's team as presented seemed a little thin. I thought, you know, just a couple people, they didn't really get into what, gave us much information and perspective on who, other than Tom Katsunas, who their, kind of who the bench looks like, who the people are going to be working on specific areas, you know, sustainability, you know, so all the other stuff. And what that looked like. And you know, college, for example, was, you know, one thing that college did to their credit was, you know, they showed us the world, all these people are going to be working on different stuff. You know, and with all due respect, Nate, you know, I have a lot of trouble getting past sort of my experience with Pomeroy, which was that one experience, not the police station, which was admittedly a much bigger, higher stakes project than what, you know, I dealt with. I was just not satisfied with the way that all turned out. So, you know, I really didn't feel that Pomeroy's presentation was just, I just didn't think it was all that good. So, so I'm kind of not super comfortable with either one, to be honest with you. But I also believe that we need to make a decision tonight. So, yeah.
One other thing.
Well, that was helpful, thanks, Ari.
It really wasn't at all, I'm sorry.
I don't like anybody, so what's
It was called, you know, committee therapy, that's what it was.
One other thing to add though,
Feel like
to
you're
what you
around.
just said in terms of who was here tonight, on CHA's proposal, they don't even have a name next to who would be the daily on-site representative during construction.
Good point.
Yeah, like, it's just TBD. So, I mean, it's one thing to know who it's gonna be, they just couldn't make it here tonight, and to talk about that person and their experience, but we don't, it could be somebody with 2 years of experience out of college, like, we don't know.
Remember this.
And we have no say. Well, we might have a little say, but we can't demand anything.
Until you make a commitment to the firm, that they're not gonna lock somebody in. These other firms propose somebody.
True.
If another job
True.
comes up in between,
true.
it doesn't,
But in my mind, at least they've proposed somebody that they feel is capable of handling the project. And we could come back to them and say, hey, this is who you said was gonna be on the project, why are they not on the project? And we need somebody of this caliber to step in. When you've got a TBD, you have no idea who that's gonna be.
So maybe we think about it a different way. When we have billions of dollars on the line, maybe we want to minimize risk or maximize, like, what's our maximum comfort level? Like, who are we most comfortable working with? Do we look at Pomeroy as a safe decision, one that's conservative? We might not get as much bang for our buck, but we know we're not going to be hung out to dry. Or do we look at one of the other places, like one of the other applicants, and say, you know, the potential for them to pull a miracle and maybe manage the cost a little bit better and make this a more palatable pill to swallow for the community. Maybe, you know, maybe we gotta look at it from that, you know, do we prefer to make a safe choice, or do we wanna gamble a little bit in the beginning to maybe have a better outcome? And if you guys are more comfortable with safety versus risk, then maybe it'll change the way we approach this.
You know, I mean, when you say, you know, what did you say, safe?
Like, we have a known quantity in Pomeroy.
Almost more
Right.
conservative, sure.
Yeah.
Right,
Um,
right.
Or do
And-
we get a little more aggressive and go outside the box to, you know, for potential bigger gain?
Which should be CHA.
Can I just ask one thing? Like CHA said that some of these services were available, in parentheses almost. Like, oh, we have an IT department, we have a media department, we have people that'll set up a website, we have, but is that included? It's just you know what I mean? This thing can pile, they can do à la carte here, and we've just blown out way past, you know what I mean? It's just a question, because they say, hey, well, that's beyond the normal OPM, we'll do it, but it's this.
I mean, none of these people are set up for a hard number. I mean, it's billable hours, so.
It's all
no matter
rates,
what you
yeah, it's all
bid.
gonna be rates.
It's right, absolutely.
And we don't even know what the rates are because we can't know that. Until we get a plan.
One of the, to borrow a term that Ari uses, bandwidth, one of the things coming into this is like, am I gonna have capacity to do this? And with all the demands of the job, and that was one of the complaints or one of the things that was said to me by 2 fire chiefs about CHA, is that because a lot of the stuff fell on them to manage, it made it very difficult for them to do their job. And I don't want an extra blood pressure medication at the end of the day, I want to preserve
Well,
my.
the two, Pomeroy's clearly the more conservative choice.
But, you know, I haven't, and I'm gonna chime in just a little too. I kind of worked with, you know, Pomeroy, you know, from a different perspective because I was, you know, a town coordinator at the time. So I helped support a lot of the initiatives through, you know, the police station, you know, process. So my interaction with Pomeroy was, you know, through an administrative perspective. And I have to say that they were on time, you know, their agendas were very direct. I know that they had weekly meetings with a small group on site, provided any feedback. There were change orders, because I think that goes without saying, but it wasn't anything that was out of, you know, surprise. They drove the process, and they were available. You know, whenever there was questions, they were available. And so, I mean, I had, from my perspective, a good working relationship with them. And, you know, I knew that, you know, coming into this interview, I was trying to be, you know, what's the word, it's like?
Objective?
Yeah, objective, you know, and open-minded.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I did maintain that, you know, through this process. I listened to what was being said, you know, if there were key points. National heritage is a huge piece of the locations that have been identified. That is not an easy process to have to go through and navigate. They did a fantastic job. They were there. I mean, I think didn't the fence fall down at one point, and they were out there in their boots putting that fence back up. So I know that they're here and they would work for us and drive this home. So.
And I don't have any negative feelings towards Pomeroy. I've learned to respect when Ari raises a concern about something, because he has a lot of municipal experience. And so that gives me pause, like as far as his warning there. But I'd be comfortable with Pomeroy as well. It's okay, but I don't want to disregard what Ari's concern was either. You've been kind of quiet, Kate. Do you have anything?
Well, I actually, funny enough, I didn't have Pomeroy on my top 3 at all. And, you know, just kind of hearing their presentations and, you know, I felt that they actually touched base on all of the questions that we had in their presentations. And then we essentially, you know, at the end, they were able to elaborate more. So it's just kind of interesting because, again, like wasn't even thinking about them. And then here I am, they're, you know, one of my top 2. So just kind of, you know, they seem to shine through that way. And you know, I'd be curious to see, you know, I know their presentation, they didn't have like all the flashy lights and everything, but, you know, are they rigid or if we have kind of requests outside of the box, you know, do they show up? Are they willing to accommodate that or, you know, kind of work upside down like some of the other, you know, representatives said, so.
Well, I can tell you that some of the ideas that we heard from CHA, from a financing standpoint to the procurement standpoint, are things that no matter who we select, I'm going to be.
He's on that.
Yeah, I like that too.
Well, that's, you know.
That's true, even the idea of
that's
coming
a-
in
that's a
with
good
a
walk-away.
hard bid
Take
beforehand, doesn't mean we have
It
to
just means
do
we go to
that.
town meeting
You
twice,
know?
or 3 times. We're going once already, so 3 times total instead of twice.
Seems like that'd be a time saver as well.
Coming in with a hard bid
Which
seems
also
hard to schedule too, because you'd have to time that perfect,
60
so.
days, that's,
When you,
yeah, no, you're right.
for the
Mike.
town
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
so that you're not delaying the contractor. he's got
Yeah,
the bid,
that's
and
gonna be-
all of a sudden you're 6 months or more
Yeah,
trying to get funded.
yeah, that's gonna be, that will be a bit of a dance.
But a dance that we can make. All right, so I'm going to open up the floor for any nominations, recommendations. Take a vote.
I'll throw it out there. I'd like to make the motion that we recommend Pomeroy for OPM.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second on the floor. Further discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call the vote. We'll do roll call.
No.
No?
Aye. Aye.
Hold on, I have to do it on this, it's late. That's an aye. Chief?
Aye, please.
Aye.
Conroy, aye.
Come back to me.
Going back to Ari. Dave?
Darling, aye.
Larry?
Cost and I.
Carboni, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we had full complement this evening. The ayes have it. So the recommendation to the select board for OPM for the fire station building committee, Ms. Pomeroy, and do that motion contingent on, or does that happen at the,
Contingent on reference checks.
right?
Yeah, so we'll need to call the reference check. References. I can do that.
Okay.
Who's gonna do references?
Ari will.
So listed, check for the references here. Where is it somewhere? Here we go. They listed 3 references: Dartmouth, Marion, and Sandwich, who I shall call.
Excellent. Next agenda items, if you have any, just send them to either to myself, Ari, or Christina. That would be great. I am going to close the meeting at 10:08 this evening. Okay. Excellent.